Chapter 632. In the evil piece, other than the king, every other piece had its own value. The value of a queen was equivalent to 9 pawns. The value of a rook was equivalent to 5 pawn. The value of a knight was equivalent to 3 pawns. The bishop was worth 3 pawns. The value of pawn belonged to the lowest level of the base. When the evil piece was used, the evil piece would evaluate the value of the target based on the target's strength, ability, potential, and other aspects. The higher the value, the more evil pieces would be consumed. Both Aisha and Irina used 4 pawns when they were reincarnated. In other words, the value of Aisha and Irina was very close to the value of 5 pawns rooks. However, it was not surprising that the sacred gear, which was called the Twilight Healing, was lodged in Isha's body, so it was not strange that she had such a value. Irina did not have any special abilities, but she was chosen by the sacred sword and became its wielder. Her value was unimaginable. As for Genova, since there were only 2 knights in the evil piece set, and Leah's already had Utokiba's knight, Genova should have only used 1 knight as well. However, the value of a knight was equivalent to 3 pawns. Genova, who used this chess piece, was definitely worth more than 3 pawns. He wouldn't lose out to Aisha or Irina. In other words, Riaz had obtained 3 potential stocks from the church. One of them had a sacred gear, and the other 2 were sacred swordsmen. Their potential was not bad. However, that was not what Noah was concerned about. Genova and Irina aside, why did Aisha reincarnate as a demon? Noah looked directly at Aisha. After hesitating for a moment, he asked with uncertainty, "Aisha, are you dissatisfied with me so you chose to join Riaz?" "No, it's not like that." Aisha's head shook like a rattle drum as she tried to explain in a panic. Because Sister Leah's is very good to me, and Kitten is also Sister Leah's family. Even Genova and Irina, who were both from the church, have joined Sister Leah's side. And the Lord is no longer here, so... As she spoke, tears welled up in the corners of Isha's eyes. She looked at Noah pitifully. "Sensei, are you angry? Please don't blame Aisha, Sensei." Following the smiling Junai, Kitten, who had been watching from the side, stepped forward and looked straight at Noah with an unusually firm expression. "I'm the one who persuaded Aisha to become the minister's dependent. But Kitty-chan did it for my own good." Aisha quickly said, "It's because knowing that the Lord is no longer here, I'm greatly affected. That's why Kitty-chan suggested for me to follow Sister Riaz and start a new life. It's definitely not because she hates you, Sensei." "Alright, I understand the general situation now." Noah rubbed his temples and immediately went straight to the point with Aisha, Genova, and Irina. "Because the God of the Bible is already dead. After knowing this, you 3 devout believers who have lost the meaning of life have all given up on yourselves and reincarnated as demons, right?" Isha, Genova, and Irina were at a loss for words as if their thoughts had been exposed. Should I say that these 3 girls are all idiots? Or should I say that they get along very well? They were all from the church and they all believed in the dead God. They all had devout beliefs, but they were all demoted as heretics and exiled from the church. And after knowing that their God was already dead, all 3 of them almost gave up on themselves and reincarnated as demons. It seems that the trio from the church are all a bunch of silly girls who don't know the ways of the world. Forget it. If this is your choice, then I won't interfere." Noah sighed and glanced at Riaz. "But isn't it a little inappropriate for Aisha to become a pawn?" Although Aisha had a sacred gear, she did not have any combat ability at all. Although Aisha would also gain magic power and physical abilities after becoming a demon, she did not know how to fight at all. Secondly, she was destined to only be a backup with her abilities. It was too inappropriate for such a girl to become a pawn who would charge at the front lines. Looking at Aisha's situation, a bishop who was good at support and focused on the development of magic power was more suitable for Aisha, was it not? Of course, Riaz understood Noah's meaning. Even so, she shrugged helplessly. "I have no choice. I only have a rook and a knight left and 8 pawns. After giving the knight to Genova, only the pawn is suitable for Aisha and Irina." "What?" Noah was surprised. "Don't you have any spare pieces for the bishop?" "I can only say that Aisha came at a bad time. Before Korkabor attacked, I had already used up the remaining bishop." Riaz smiled sweetly. "So next let me introduce my bishop to you. She should be here soon. Just as she finished speaking, the magic circle carved on the ground of the Supernatural Research Department suddenly flashed. Bang! Amidst the scorching flames, a figure slowly appeared in front of everyone. When Noah saw the full appearance of the person who appeared in the flames, he frowned. It was a girl. She was wearing an elegant dress, her blonde hair tied into a drill-like double ponytail hairstyle. She was short, but her figure was much more prominent than other girls of the same age. She looked to be only 14 or 15 years old. That. The girl seemed to be a little nervous as she clutched her dress, her eyes constantly glancing at Noah's direction. Her face was slightly red, and she purposely made herself sound very calm as she raised her head and puffed out her chest. I'm Rebel Phoenix. Yes, Phoenix. The girl in front of him was the one who was summoned by Riesel and defeated by Noah's white horse in one move. Later, she begged Noah to let Riesel go, and called Riesel brother. After such a long time, the girl who was supposed to be Riesel's sister and Riesel's kin had appeared before Noah once again. She had actually become Riesel's bishop. Noah had heard that superior demons with evil pieces could exchange their pieces with each other, but the condition was that the pieces must be of the same type. Could it be? Not long ago, the Phoenix family contacted me, saying that this child wishes to come to me and become my kin. Riesel pushed Rebel in front of everyone. So, I used an empty bishop to make a trade with Riesel and got Rebel. I just want to come to Lady Riesel's place for an apprenticeship. Rebel looked at Noah, her eyes wandering. But, I didn't come here for you. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched, and he did not know how to react. If there's a chance, everyone will know about the other bishop in the future. With that, Riesel ended the conversation. Everyone should get along well. Chapter 633. Cheers! In Noah's room with Laius in the lead, the group of Gamonli's kin gathered the drinks in their hands in the middle and clinked glasses with each other. With a loud and clear ding, the atmosphere in the room became lively all of a sudden. Liaz looked around at the girls in the room and showed a happy expression from the bottom of her heart. This way, other than the rook, all of my family members have been gathered. How fortunate! Every set of the evil piece had 16 pieces. Among them, there was only one king and one queen, 2 rook, 2 knight, and 2 bishop each. In addition to the 8 pawn, there were a total of 16 pawns. Now Liaz was the king, Junai was the queen, Kitten was the rook, Genova was the knight, Label was the bishop, Shiba Yuto was the knight, and Shiba Yuto was the knight, who was not present because he needed to protect Shiba Kazunari, and Aisha and Irina, who each used 4 pawns. Liaz only had 1 rook and 1 bishop left. According to Leah, her other bishop had actually been used, but due to special circumstances that bishop was not by her side, and she could only use pawn as a pawn to reincarnate. Therefore, the only piece left that Liaz had not used was the rook. Although there's still 1 rook that I haven't used, but gaining 4 excellent dependents at once is indeed something worth celebrating, Liaz declared majestically. Let's celebrate today. Tomorrow Genova, Irina, and Label, the 3 of you will have to report to Kuma Academy, and I will announce that you have officially joined the Supernatural Research Department. The girls with drinks in their hands responded in unison. Yes, Minister. Noah, who was also holding a drink in his hand, sighed as he watched the girls filling up his room. Some of them could only sit on the bed. I don't mind if you want to celebrate, but why do you want to celebrate in my room? Undoubtedly, the Supernatural Research Department takes up more space than mine, right? Upon hearing that, Leah said to Noah with a half-smile, Can't help it. My dependents think that it's better to come to your house. Yes, when Leah suggested to celebrate and find a venue, every girl present suggested that they just go to Noah's house. After all, this is the room that we cleaned up. Irina raised her hand and answered like an elementary school student. I've always felt that I would feel a sense of belonging if I came here. The last time I came here, I thought that you were a deicide, but now after becoming a demon, I feel safe around you. Genova laughed self-deprecatingly. Is this also a punishment from the heavens? I just want to see what kind of place the deicide lives. Label turned away, but her eyes were still sneaking glances at Noah. I didn't come here because I want to know where you live, and what you look like. Era. Junai said with a smile as she cupped one side of her face. I'm also very curious about where teacher Noah lives. After the girls expressed their thoughts one after another, Isha and the kitten sat upright on the bed with a "this is my home" look, leaving Noah speechless. Whatever. Do as you please. Noah finished the drink in his hand gloomily. Then, as if remembering something, he said to Liaz, "But since you have the time to celebrate, it means that you're done with your work, right?" At the mention of business, Liaz immediately became serious. Yes. The governor of the fallen angels, Asa Shur, has already conveyed the truth to the angels and demons regarding the matter of Ko-Keber. The decisions to steal the holy sword and attack the demon king's sister were all done by Ko-Keber alone. The other officers had no idea. And the crime of trying to start a war again has made the fallen angel camp decide to sentence Ko-Keber to eternal freezing. He will be frozen in the lowest level of hell forever, never to see the light of day again. In other words, Ko-Keber was equivalent to being imprisoned for life, never to see the light of day again. And with Ko-Keber's personality as a war maniac, such a punishment was countless times worse than dying at Noah's hands, right? Because it was a riot caused by one of their own, the fallen angel camp decided to deal with it themselves, right? Liaz narrowed her eyes. The White Dragon Emperor who joined the fallen angel camp did intervene. So, even if teacher didn't defeat Ko-Keber, the White Dragon Emperor would have taken action and forcibly brought Ko-Keber back, right? In the end, the three forces have decided to hold a meeting. Junai interrupted and said in an unprecedented tone of disgust, "I heard that the governor of the fallen angels, Asa Shur, seemed to have something to say during the meeting. Some people think that he might be apologizing to appease Ko-Keber's matter." The representatives of the three major forces gathered together for a meeting? Noah curled his lips and smiled in an interesting tone. In other words, Wally, the White Dragon Emperor, will also represent the fallen angels? It is said that other than the governor of the fallen angels, Asa Shur, only the White Dragon Emperor will follow the fallen angels for the meeting this time. Leah's eyes flickered. The demons have long received reliable news that Asa Shur seems to have been gathering the holders of sacred gear, making the angels and demons very vigilant. I don't know what Asa Shur plans to do with those sacred gear. At this point, Leah's looked around at everyone present. And among the holders of the sacred gear gathered by Athaziel, the White Dragon Emperor can be said to be the best. I heard that with the addition of the fallen angel cadres, his strength is enough to rank in the top 5 in the entire fallen angel camp. He's much stronger than Korkabor. Top 5. The girls looked at each other and stood up. He can rank in the top 5 in the entire fallen angel camp? That is equivalent to having strength close to the demon king level, right? After all, among the fallen angels, the top 3 had the strength of the demon king level. The highest ranking and most powerful governor, Asa Shur, had fought with gods and demon kings since ancient times. His strength was definitely above ordinary demon kings. The current White Dragon Emperor is actually that powerful? Label frowned and asked Liaz. Then what about the current Red Dragon Emperor? As soon as this sentence came out, everyone including Noah, Liaz, Junai, Kitten, and the others showed strange expressions. All right. After a while, Liaz spoke calmly. Let's continue to celebrate. Huh. Label was suddenly puzzled. But the Red Dragon Emperor? Don't think so much, Kitten also said expressionlessly. Now let's just celebrate. Genova suddenly seemed to remember something and opened a large box beside him. If you want to celebrate, I have something good here. Hearing this, everyone leaned over to take a look and was immediately stunned. The box was filled with bottles of wine. I heard that wine is always indispensable during celebrations, Genova said calmly. You can't drink in the church, but now that I'm a demon, I want to give it a try. Wait. As the current teacher, Noah immediately said. Students can't drink. However, the group of curious girls could no longer stop him. This is an exception, right? Once in a while is fine, right? It's not bad to give it a try, right? 3 rhetorical questions in a row, and the situation was finally heading toward a terrible situation. Chapter 634. About an hour into the celebration, Noah looked at the scene in front of him and covered his face, as if he could not bear to look at it. Junai, I still want. Minister here. On both sides of the small round table, Lisha and Junai each held a bottle of wine tightly. Their faces were flushed. And their eyes were the most intoxicating kind of blur as they competed with each other. Kitty, Senior Aisha. Beside them, Aisha and Kitty hugged each other, giggling as if they had not slept for 3 days. You heretic. It's because there are heretics like you. That's why the Lord abandoned us and left. No. You're the heretic. You're the heretic. On the other hand, Genova and Irina started an argument for no reason. They were pinching each other's faces as they argued, and they were pinching each other's faces as if their lives depended on it. Around these girls, bottles of wine littered the floor of the room as if they were free. The air was filled with the thick smell of wine, telling others why these girls were acting so strangely. Sigh. Noah, regretting that he could not stop all of this, could only look at the sky and sigh. If there really is a God behind all of this, then it must be the so-called God's revenge on me, the God-slayer, right? For an entire hour, Lisha and Jimenez's kin were all drinking as if their lives depended on it. Not for anything else, but because of what Irina said before they started drinking to celebrate. We are all demons and our bodies are much stronger than humans. If we drink too little, we won't be able to taste the true essence of the wine, right? And so, a terrible drinking contest began. At first, it was Lisha and Junai's contest. These two king and queen, who seemed to be on very good terms with each other, were extremely competitive with each other. In a situation where neither of them was willing to admit defeat, the two girls who originally only had the thought of tasting each other ended up in this state. Then it was Genova and Irina's contest. These two believers were both from the church and had been quarreling over some inexplicable matter since a long time ago. Now, as soon as they started drinking, the two of them started drinking as if they were having convulsions. Then they ended up like this. As for Aisha and Kitty, they were just drinking with the others. In the end, as the others drank more and more fiercely, the two girls could only follow suit and be forced to drink. Soon after, they also became like this. What could Noah say? Even if he could, these drunkards in front of him would definitely not listen, right? If this continues, I'm afraid these girls won't be able to go home tonight. Noah was conflicted. When he glanced at Lisha, Junai, Aisha, Kitty, Genova, and Irina, he was suddenly stunned. Where's Lisha? As soon as he said that, a pair of hands suddenly reached out from behind Noah and wrapped around Noah's neck. Then a petite, soft, and surprisingly well-endowed body pressed against Noah's back. Her entire body was on Noah's back, and Noah could smell the thick scent of alcohol. At that moment, Noah quickly turned his head around and saw the person he was looking at. Lisha's pretty face was flushed, and she was so drunk that she could not be any more drunk. She stared straight at Noah with bewitching eyes, her chin resting on Noah's shoulder as she revealed an intoxicating smile. Lord Noah. The way she addressed him made the corner of Noah's eye twitch. Ever since Lisha appeared in the Supernatural Research Department as Lisha's servant, this girl's behavior had made Noah speechless. Logically speaking, Noah felt that Lisha hated him. After all, this girl had always looked at Noah with disdain or anger, and even looked at Noah with disdain. Of course, Lisha had reason to hate Noah. During the battle with Rizzle, not only did Noah burn all of Phoenix's servants, but he also tortured Rizzle to the point that he wished he was dead. But in fact, Noah could feel that Lisha was secretly looking at him from time to time, and she would even blush like a young girl in love. Noah had seen this look countless times in the love-struck students of Full King Academy, so naturally, he could recognize it. However, even Noah was confused as to what Laybell was thinking when she displayed a look of disgust, as well as a look of blushing heartbeat. So Noah decided to just ignore Lisha. But now this girl was behaving like this again. What was she trying to do? While Noah was complaining inwardly, Lisha, who was hugging Noah's neck tightly, actually rubbed her face against his. Lord Noah, I finally get to see you. I really want to see you. What are you doing? Noah pushed Lisha's face away as he complained. Thinking about how to kill me, right? No, it's not like that. Laybell ignored Noah's push and rubbed herself against Noah's body with a drunken look on her face. I want to kiss and kiss Lord Noah. Kiss me. Noah almost doubted if his ears were playing tricks on him. No way. I'm the one who killed your brother. Yes, Lisha said in an extremely happy tone. You killed him in one go. Super cool. Just like a hero. Noah was completely speechless. The one who was killed in one go seemed to be your brother. Since then, I've always wanted to see Lord Noah. Then I really couldn't hold it in any longer. When I heard that Lady Lisha still had a spare pawn named Bishop, I couldn't help but ask Mother to have my brother trade me to Lady Lisha so that I can come to Lord Noah's side. Now my wish has finally come true. Lisha, who didn't know Noah's thoughts, revealed her hidden thoughts while staring at Noah's face. Her pretty face became redder and redder, and her eyes became more and more blurred. Finally, as if she couldn't hold it in any longer, she shouted, "No, I can't hold it in anymore. I can't leave Lord Noah anymore." With that, Lisha stood up and suddenly pounced on Noah. "Hey!" Noah was shocked. "What are you doing?" "Lord Noah, please don't leave Lisha. Lisha will be obedient." With that, Lisha straightforwardly hugged Noah's body, and with an intoxicated expression, she began to thrash around randomly. Noah's mouth was already in an O shape. What's going on? At this moment, Lisha had already hugged Noah, catching him off guard from the shock. Noah was caught in the middle. "Idiot! You're drunk." "I'm not drunk." That's the exact same line as those typical drunkards. "I'm not a drunkard. I'm Lisha, who loves Lord Noah the most." "Wait! Don't grab me." Noah, who was being held by Lisha, didn't notice that the other girls were beginning to notice the situation. "Let go of that, fiancé." Lisha couldn't even speak clearly. "Even if someone wants to hug him, I should be the one doing it." Era, are we all going to hug teacher?" Junai was also smiling foolishly, which was rare. "Sounds fun. I'll do it too." Isha tried her best to keep her eyes open. She was so drunk that even her eyes were misty, as if her favorite toy had been snatched away. "Then I want it too. I want to hug teacher too." "You're not allowed to do anything vulgar." Kitten was even more ridiculous. She stood up shakily, and was speaking incoherently. "If someone wants to do it, I should be the one doing it." Meow. "Is this a group activity?" Genova clapped and cheered drunkenly. "That's not bad. I'll join too." What? Irina, who was shaking her head, immediately raised her hand and smiled foolishly. "I want it too. Don't leave me out." Amidst the commotion, the group of girls actually began to move in Noah's direction. Noah, who was tangled up with Lisha, finally managed to push her away. Then his vision was covered by shadows, and his body was soon hugged by several weights, so tight that Noah almost couldn't breathe. Noah wanted to cry but had no tears to shed as he stood in the middle of Lias and the other girls. What kind of godly development is this? Chapter 635. When the sunlight shone through the window and illuminated the entire room, Lias led the group of sober Jamanli girls looked at each other and fell into an indescribable silence. Logically speaking, after drinking so much last night, they should have had a hangover even if they had woken up. Unfortunately, the girls here were not normal humans. They were demons, and their physical abilities were more or less strengthened. Even Aisha, who was not good at physical abilities, was not affected much and had all sobered up. However, it was because of their sobriety that the girls could not understand the situation in front of them. Whether they were demons or not, the girls were indeed drunk last night. Since they were drunk, naturally, they would not have a clear memory of what happened after they were drunk. Under such circumstances, how could the group of girls understand the situation? After saying so much, the girls were just curious about their current situation. 1. Everyone was lying on the floor of Noah's room. 2. There were wine bottles everywhere. Number 3. Every girl has lost the memory of the previous night and can't remember anything. These situations did not happen before they lost consciousness last night. Naturally, the group of young girls was somewhat unable to comprehend the situation. Of course, even if they could not understand, they still had some guesses. Lias rubbed her temples and was the first to break the silence. "Looks like we were all drunk last night." This was the only explanation that could explain why the group of girls were in such a state. Era. Junai did not refute Lia's statement, but smiled and said doubtfully, "But why are we like this?" "I have the same question." Genova did not care about her image at all. She sat cross-legged on the floor in an indecent manner and asked, "I've heard of getting drunk, but I've never heard of what it feels like to be drunk." "Genova, I have a bad feeling about what you're saying." Irina wasn't as forthright as Genova. Even though everyone present was a female, she still raised her arms and hugged her body as she spoke bashfully. Getting drunk and not remembering anything after waking up, it's like... Before Irina could finish, Kitten, who was also hugging herself with her hands in front of her, spoke in a deep voice. It's as if someone did something bad to us while we were drunk. In all sorts of ways. Aisha and Label froze when they heard that. As long as one was a woman, they would probably understand what Kitten meant. However, it did not take long for an extremely tired and weak voice, as if someone had just finished a marathon, to reach the girl's ears. There are indeed people who intend to do bad things when they are drunk, and in every sense. The girls were all stunned when they heard that voice. In the next second, the group of girls discovered that the voice came from under Irina and Label, who were still lying on the ground. Whatever it is, how about you get off me first? Hearing this, Elena and Label subconsciously lowered their heads and looked down. They saw Noah lying there with an exhausted expression. His face pressed tightly together by Irina and Label's bodies. His eyes were half closed, and he looked like his soul had left his body. Wah dash! Irina and Label screamed in unison and hurriedly escaped from Noah's body. Teacher Noah? Liaz, Junai, Aisha, Kitten, and Genova all exclaimed in surprise. Then they remembered. That's right. Noah was there as well. Teacher. Why are you here too? Wah! Irina, Label, and Aisha all cried out in surprise. They even thought that something had happened, and their pretty faces turned completely red as they panicked. On the other hand, Liaz, Junai, and Genova looked at each other as if nothing had happened. Come to think of it, Teacher is here too. Don't tell me. Just as she said that, Kitten's shameful and angry voice, along with an extremely sharp gaze, shot viciously in Noah's direction. Lousy, perverted teacher. All right. Noah slowly sat up from the ground, looking utterly exhausted. Because it would only be more tiring to explain, I'll only say it once. I didn't do anything, and I certainly didn't do anything to any of you. You'll know that when you check your bodies. You don't need a health teacher like me to tell you how to check, do you? Hearing this, the group of young girls looked at each other in dismay. Their charming faces were flushed red. In the end, it was still Liaz who asked Noah a question out of curiosity. Then why do you look like you're half dead from exhaustion? As soon as he finished speaking, Noah glanced at all the girls present with a trace of hatred in his eyes and squeezed out those words. Because I've guarded my chastity for an entire night. If he really showed his true ability, Noah could take down all the girls present in minutes. The problem was that Noah couldn't do that at all, right? So last night, in fact, after being pushed down by the group of 7 girls, in order to not let anything happen, Noah was in a hurry to protect himself, so that these drunkards wouldn't take advantage of the chaos to do anything. Although Noah was almost used to skin contact, and could even kiss with a peaceful mentality, it was really difficult for him to make the mistake of having sex with 7 girls in a row at the scene. After all, at present, Noah had only had sex with his 2 fiancées, right? Now, to let Noah push down 7 beautiful girls at once, and when they were drunk, Noah had to express that the level was really too high. To put it simply, the situation last night was too magical. Whether it was the impact or the shock, it was too great, and Noah really couldn't face it head-on. At that time, he really didn't know what kind of trouble would happen. Swept by Promise's hateful gaze, the rest of the girls had a strange look on their faces. Only Liaz, after thinking seriously, came to such a conclusion. In other words, at the critical moment you don't have the guts, right? This sentence was like a sharp knife, ruthlessly stabbing into Noah's heart, making the corner of Noah's mouth twitch. Era. Junai suddenly covered her mouth and laughed, and added such a sentence. I didn't expect that. Teacher is unexpectedly quite cute. Is that so? Genova expressed. I feel a little regretful. If I can have a child with teacher, it seems to be a very interesting thing. To you, is having a child just an interesting thing? Noah finally couldn't help but ask. Looks like you need treatment. I can do it too. Isha, who was at the side, didn't know what stimulated her, but her cheeks were red as she spoke. Although I'm a little scared, if teacher wants, I can do it too. Just take it as a punishment for being reincarnated as a demon without teacher's permission. Punishment? Take it as a punishment? Then Noah would really be a zombie. Please don't make trouble. Noah was about to cry. I'm already so tired last night. I really don't want to waste too much energy today. By the way, How can you continue to stay here as if nothing happened? Label, who was about to curl up into a ball, couldn't help but cry out. Hurry up and get out. At the same time that Label cried out, Kitten had already made her move. Get rid of bad teachers. However, as soon as the kitten raised her fist, a piece of clothing was thrown out by Noah powerlessly. It covered the kitten's head, causing the kitten to be flustered. Ignoring Lias and Junai's half-smiling faces, Genova and Layla's regretful looks, Irina and Aisha's blushing faces, and the kitten who could not see anything because of the clothes covering her head, Noah walked into the washroom weakly. Today was destined to be a very tiring day. Chapter 636. Wow! On the way to Colt King Academy, Noah could clearly hear the constant gasps of amazement around him. That was only natural. That was because there were 7 beautiful girls beside Noah, chatting as they followed Noah forward. That scene was indeed quite pleasing to the eye. At the moment, Genova, Irina, and Label had already put on Colt King Academy's student uniforms. Under Lias's arrangement, Genova, Irina, and Label would officially study at the Colt King Academy and become members of the Supernatural Research Department to make it easier for them to move around and experience school life. Genova and Irina were planning to go to year 2. Label, on the other hand, was the same age as Kitten and was about to enter year 1, becoming the junior of Leah, Junai, Aisha, Genova, and Irina. That was why Lias, Junai, Aisha, and the others were imparting their experiences to Genova, Irina, and Label about the upcoming school life. Only the little cat remained silent and stayed by Noah's side. Glancing at Genova and Irina, who were surrounding Aisha and asking her all sorts of questions, Noah felt more or less at ease. Noah did not forget that Genova and Irina had said some terrible things to Aisha not too long ago because of their faith. Now it seemed that Aisha, Genova, and Irina had buried the hatchet without Noah knowing. From Noah's perspective, that was perhaps a good thing. After all, Aisha had always been very concerned about what happened to her, believing that she was abandoned because her faith was not devout enough. Now knowing that God was dead was a huge blow to Aisha, causing her to give up on herself and reincarnate as a demon without even informing Noah. However, it also made her realize that she was not abandoned because of her lack of faith, and unconsciously became more open-minded. Perhaps this situation could be considered a good thing. And with Genova and Irina as companions in the same predicament, Aisha should be more open-minded and not be stuck in her past, right? To be able to change so quickly, God's death is a good thing. Noah smiled bitterly as he recalled how Genova and Irina were all sorts of supercilious and only focused on their faith when they first met. And here I thought that the God of the Bible wasn't anything good. Now it seems that I was too one-sided. After muttering to himself for a while, Noah suddenly had a strange feeling in his heart, causing him to stop abruptly. Ouch! Behind Noah, Irina, who was chatting happily with Genova and Aisha, bumped into Noah's back. Her plump breasts were flattened under her clothes, and she yelped in pain as she clutched her chest and took a step back. What? The other girls also noticed Noah's unusual behavior and stopped in their tracks. It was then that the girls noticed that Noah was looking in a certain direction. Following Noah's line of sight, the group of girls immediately discovered it. In the direction Noah was looking, there was a person standing there. It was a man in his 30s or 40s, wearing a kimono and looking a little naughty. The man seemed to be observing something as he stood by the side of the road. His eyes were constantly scanning the students of Kamigami Academy, who passed by him, as if he was looking for someone. Perhaps sensing Noah's gaze, the man suddenly turned his head and met Noah's gaze. There was obvious surprise on his face, but it quickly turned into a smile. It was a smile that contained no malice, but it was extremely invasive, as if wanting to see through everything and thoroughly dig out all the secrets of the other party. That smile sent a chill down the spines of all the Jamonli's kin, including Ria's, and their scalps numbed. However, the man was not looking at Ria's and the others but at Noah. Yo! The man greeted Noah as if he was seeing an old friend. You're Noah Doria, aren't you? Looks like I don't need to introduce myself. Noah looked straight at the man as if he was not surprised that the man knew his name. Then, shouldn't you tell us your name as well? If it's possible, I don't want to give my name in this situation because it will cause unnecessary trouble. But since the legendary God Slayer has asked for it, it would be rude if I don't respond. The man spread his hands, and the smile on his face became more and more like he was up to no good. Athasiel. You should have heard of this name before. When the man said the name Athasiel, all the girls except Noah froze. Athasiel. Of course there was no one who did not know this name. The governor of the fallen angels. The highest-ranking fallen angel with 12 wings. The leader with the highest position and the strongest strength in the entire fallen angel faction. The boss of one of the 3 major forces, Athasiel. In other words, the man standing in front of them, who looked no different from an ordinary middle-aged man, was the boss of the fallen angels who had the same status as the gods and demon kings. With Riaz in the lead, all the girls tensed up their bodies and got into a battle stance. Kitten, Genova, and Irina even shielded the helpless Aisha behind them as they stared at Athasiel with a solemn and heavy expression, making the atmosphere around them tense. Wait, don't be nervous. If I want to attack you, you won't have the chance to react. Athasiel raised his hand unhurriedly and made a gesture of surrender, but his attitude was still as leisurely as ever. Let me make it clear. Although there is the next head of the Gimli family, Sizak's sister, and 2 sword saints among you, and the one over there seems to be a little girl from the Phoenix family, even if all of you come at me together, you won't be my opponent. After that, Athasiel stared at Noah with a smile. Except for the Godslayer over there. Hearing this, Noah raised his eyebrows. What? Don't you suspect that my title of Godslayer is just a bluff? I hope so, but I was once an angel after all. After I fell, I became the boss of the fallen angels and have always dealt with various gods in various senses. Athasiel laughed bitterly. So I can still smell the scent of God's blood on you. Hearing Athasiel's words, Noah did not relax but became a little more serious. To be able to see through to this extent was already proof of Athasiel's ability. After all, before this, except for Sizak's, none of the people who had seen Noah believed that Noah had killed a god in the beginning. Governor of the fallen angels, what is your purpose of coming here? Liaz finally took a step forward and made her voice sound. Because of what happened to Kobold, the angels and demons are now very vigilant against you fallen angels. You still came to my territory. Do you really want to start a war between the 3 forces? You've misunderstood. Wars and whatnot are boring. Aesashurs denied without hesitation. I just heard that the Red Dragon Emperor seems to be here, so I came to look for it. Oh. Noah narrowed his eyes. In other words, you're not here for us? I'm just interested in the Godslayer and the Red Dragon Emperor. Athasiel looked at Noah provocatively. How about it? Do you want to talk for a while? Noah did not answer immediately. He just kept looking at Athasiel. After a long time, he said to Liaz and the others beside him, You guys go back to the academy first. Liaz and the others seemed to want to say something, but they were interrupted by Noah directly. What? Do you think I can't even protect myself? Liaz and the others suddenly fell silent. Oh, you can actually control Sizak's sister and her family? As expected of the man known as the Godslayer. Athasiel turned and walked into the distance. Then come with me. Looking at Athasiel's back, Noah patted Leah's shoulder. Under the gaze of the girls, he followed Athasiel's footsteps and walked into the distance. Chapter 637. Following behind Aesashurs, Noah followed Aesashurs aimlessly while observing the surroundings. Although Aesashurs said that he could protect himself, it wasn't enough to be a reason for Aesashurs to not attack Noah. Noah directly beat up the fallen angel cadre, the guy named Korkabor, until he was looking for his teeth on the ground. The atmosphere between Noah and Wally, who defected to the fallen angels, was also the kind of situation where it wouldn't be strange for them to fight at any time. In this way, whether Aesashurs would plot against Noah for various reasons, even Noah himself wasn't sure. What was certain was that Aesashur's strength was stronger than Korkabor. And it was a lot stronger. Even Wally, who was known as the White Dragon Emperor, might not be Aesashur's opponent, right? After all, Wally was evaluated to be in the top 5 in the Fallen Angel camp, but Aesashurs was the real number 1. As a character who had fought with gods and demon kings since ancient times, Aesashurs was only stronger than Wally. Noah really couldn't determine the reason for such a character to suddenly appear in this town and talk to him. Therefore, it was necessary to observe a little. Unfortunately, Aesashurs didn't intend to take Noah anywhere. Instead, he directly took Noah into a restaurant while Noah was a little stunned. Come, come, sit down. After finding a seat, Aesophagus waved at Noah with great enthusiasm. This is my favorite restaurant after coming to this town. We can talk while eating. Noah's eyelids twitched when he saw Aesophagus sitting at a table in the middle of the crowded restaurant. After greeting him, Aesophagus immediately ordered his food from the waiter. He lamented in his heart that he was an idiot. In the end, only Noah was vigilant. Aesophagus himself didn't care at all that he would suddenly be attacked by Noah. At that moment, Noah sat in front of Aesophagus and went straight to the point. All right, stop fooling around. Hurry up and say what you want to say. I still have work to do. You're surprisingly passionate about the work of humans. Aesophagus shrugged helplessly, then suddenly smiled. Then first of all, let me ask, is the Red Dragon Emperor really with you? Did your White Dragon Emperor tell you that? Noah glanced at Aesophagus. What will you do if I say yes? Do you even need to ask? Aesophagus said without hesitation. Kill him, of course. Noah's eyes suddenly narrowed. He didn't expect Aesophagus to reveal his intentions, and such intentions at that. Killed the Red Dragon Emperor? Noah looked directly at Athashel. That should be the job of the White Dragon Emperor, right? I say, do you really not understand, or are you pretending not to? Aesophagus sighed. According to Wally, this generation's Red Dragon Emperor seems to be just an ordinary human with nothing. Until now, he still hasn't had the ability to awaken the sacred gear in his body, right? Noah furrowed his brows. Is there a problem? That's the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, which is known as the Longelness. You can imagine its power. Aesophagus looked up, his eyes flashing with a somewhat serious light. That kind of power is lodged in an ordinary human. If the other party has the ability to awaken it and control it, then it's another matter. But until now, he hasn't been able to awaken the sacred gear, which proves that the human doesn't have any talent. That's dangerous. Noah vaguely understood what Aesophagus meant. If too much power can't be controlled, then there's only one outcome. Aesophagus raised a finger. Go berserk. This sentence directly struck Noah's heart. No one knew better than Noah how true Aesophagus' words were. Because when Noah was young, he himself had gone berserk countless times due to having too much magic power. For this reason, he had to worry a lot and train hard to control his magic power. It took him a whole year or two to finally solve this problem. Letting that power go berserk is something that no force wants to see, Aesophagus said somewhat ruthlessly. So this generation's Red Dragon Emperor is too dangerous. If I met him in advance, I would definitely send my subordinates to get rid of him. From Aesophagus' words, Noah could hear that there was no room for doubt. In other words, Aesophagus really wanted to kill Hyoto Issei. However, that had to be approved by Noah. That's my student. I won't let you do whatever you want, Noah said faintly. However, what you said makes sense. Hyoto Issei's matter will be solved by me. You don't need to intervene. Oh. Aesophagus took a deep look at Noah and immediately smiled. Since even the Godslayer said so, then I'll look forward to it. This is really surprising. Noah and Aesophagus' eyes met. I heard that the governor of the fallen angel has been collecting the holders of the sacred gear. I thought you were going to take the Red Dragon Emperor under your command. I do have a great interest in the sacred gear. I'm even studying the sacred gear. I'm also a little interested in the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, but that's under the condition that there are no sequelae, Aesophagus said slowly. Since this generation's Red Dragon Emperor can't even awaken the sacred gear, then I can only give up. Besides, the White Dragon Emperor is also a good observation target. No, it should be said that it's a joke observation target, right? A joke observation target? Noah asked. What do you mean? This generation's White Dragon Emperor, I'm afraid, will be the strongest White Dragon Emperor in the past and in the future, right? Aesophagus revealed such a news. After all, that guy Wally, his full name is Wally Lucifer. Lucifer. Noah was stunned. Lucifer? Isn't that the title of the Demon King? Yes, the current Lucifer is a title, Aesophagus said word by word as if he saw through Noah's mind. But the past Lucifer is not a title, right? The surnames of the 4 demon kings who died in the war were not titles, but real surnames that only the blood relatives of the demon kings who passed down the family could have. Noah heard from Leah's that after the death of the old demon kings, their descendants seemed to intend to continue to fight to the death with the angels and the fallen angels, completely ignoring the great damage to the demon camp. Therefore, all of them were banished to the edge of the underworld. Could it be? Wally is the descendant of the old demon king Lucifer. Asashel explained as if he was sighing. However, because Wally's mother is human, he is still a hybrid between a demon and a human. With half-human blood, the sacred gear that only resides in the human body can still choose him. And the one that chose him is the diving dividing white dragon emperor. Do you know why I call him the strongest white dragon emperor? Was there a need to say it? With the bloodline of the old demon king, Wally's strength and potential were simply unimaginable. Under such circumstances, it was simply a joke that he still had the longleness in his body. Why are you telling me this? Noah asked in confusion. This information is no small matter, and you're telling me so easily? There's a reason for telling you. Asashel's eyes flickered. You should have heard from Sizax's sister that the three major forces will hold a meeting. When the time comes, I will bring Wally with me. I hope you can keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on him? Noah's heart skipped a beat. You mean? I hope it's just my imagination. Asashel closed his eyes. But, with my understanding of him, I'm afraid that when the time comes he will do something, right? Leaving this sentence, Asashel took out another document. Well, I'm not asking you to do this for free. Take this as your reward. Chapter 638. Reward. Noah frowned tightly. He reached out and picked up the document that Asashel put on the table and began to flip through it. Seeing this, Asashel smiled slightly and drank his tea, allowing Noah to flip through the documents he brought. As Noah flipped through the documents brought by Asashel, his expression became more and more surprised. The reason for that was because what was recorded on it was nothing else but a type of technique. It was a technique used to create sacred gear. Artificially create sacred gear? Noah looked at Asashel in amazement. There was no way he could not be surprised. After all, sacred gear was a power created by the God of the Bible who had died. So far, no one had been able to imitate it. However, Asashel brought the technology of artificially creating sacred gear and directly gave this technology to Noah. How could Noah not be surprised? Don't be happy too early. The sacred gear system created by the God of the Bible is too powerful. Mine is at best a simulation. Asashel shook his head as if he had already expected Noah's reaction. Let's not talk about other things. Most of the sacred gear that I've created myself are useless, and very few of them are practical. Although there are some that I'm satisfied with, they all have various problems, and I'm still in the process of improving them. So, don't think that you can mass-produce sacred gear just because you have this technology. Noah was not confused by Asashel's words and directly saw the value of the document in his hand. As long as I can create a successful product, even if I fail countless times, it is still a profit, right? You also said that Wally's existence is like a joke. Once an existence like you who is stronger than Wally also has sacred gear. Even if it is not comparable to Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear and White Dragon Emperor's diving dividing wings, it can still greatly increase your strength. At that time you will become a joke like a fallen angel, right? After the powerless humans obtained sacred gear, some of them grew into powerhouses that the superior demons and even the most superior demons could not match. As for the best of the sacred gear, the Longleness, the owners of the Longleness could become existences that could rival the gods and the demon king. Under such circumstances, Wally, who had the bloodline of the old demon king, had the White Dragon Emperor's diving dividing wings. In the future, Asashel would evaluate him as the strongest White Dragon Emperor since ancient times and even in the future. It was conceivable that once an already powerful existence had a sacred gear, it would be against the rules. I am really satisfied that my invention can get such a high evaluation from you. Asashel laughed. However, giving this thing to you is not just to give it to you as a reward, but also to let you become a force to be reckoned with by the three major forces. Reckon with? Noah looked straight at Asashel and urged him to continue. So Asashel said so. I plan to let the three major forces conclude a peace treaty in this meeting with the angels and demons. These words directly made Noah raise his eyes and look at Asashel. A peace treaty between the three major forces? In other words, demons, angels, and fallen angels will truly usher in peace and no longer continue to fight? As you can see, although the three major forces are now basically in a state of truce, their own small-scale conflicts still continue. Not to mention the fallen angels, there are more or less angels and demons like Korkabor, right? Asashel crossed his arms. If this continues, the three major forces will definitely perish together. And losing demons, angels, and fallen angels will also have a great impact on this world. I think that the angels and demons should also be planning to truly conclude a treaty and usher in peace. Saying this, Asashel pointed to the document in Noah's hand. In the past, the three major forces actually joined forces once, and that was when the two heavenly dragons caused havoc on the battlefield. So I'm giving this to you. Hearing this, Noah suddenly felt relieved. In other words, you want me to play the role of the two heavenly dragons? Only with enough external deterrence can the three major forces establish true peace with each other. Asashel looked straight at Noah and smiled. As the Godslayer, you have the ability to make the three major forces not dare to act rashly. So I hope that you can exist as a restraining force for the three major forces, and let them know that once the peace is broken, they will be obliterated by the Godslayer. Then there will be true peace in the future. You think too highly of me. Noah raised his eyebrows. Varley said that I can only rank in the top 20 in this world. Do you think I can threaten the three major forces? Oh? Did Wally give such an evaluation? Asashel asked meaningfully. But, do you really think you can only rank in the top 20? In the face of Asashel's words, Noah just smiled and did not say anything. In short, as a reward, I hope that this thing can move you and let you attend the meeting of the three major forces. Asashel did not continue on this topic. With the Godslayer attending, the meeting should be a lot smoother. Noah looked at the document in his hand and slowly tightened his grip on it. When Noah came out of the restaurant and returned to Komodo Academy, it was already past class time. Even so, Noah still used his teacher's privilege to make a broadcast. Second grade Hyuta Kazunari, please go to the infirmary after class to find Noah-sensei. I repeat, second grade Hyuta Kazunari, please go to the infirmary after class to find Noah-sensei. About half an hour later, Noah, who was in the infirmary, heard the sound of the door being opened. Looking up, Noah looked in the direction of the door. There, Hyuta Kazunari and Kimura Yudo walked in together. Kimura, you're here too? Noah smiled slightly. You're really dutiful. After all, it's the director's order. Kimura Yudo said with a smile that no one could find fault with. Moreover, there are more and more people eyeing Ishichikuan. I have to be by his side at all times. Handsome man, go die, don't say such ambiguous words. Hyuta Kazunari's body shook exaggeratedly as he jumped away from Kimura Yudo. A man by my side is not making me happy at all. If you want, give me a woman. What's wrong? Noah asked. Don't you want Kimura Yudo by your side? Of course not. Hyuta Kazunari answered without hesitation as he cried. Because this guy keeps sticking to me. Now the school is full of rumors about me and this guy, Kimura Yudo x Hyutu, or Hyuta x Kimura, and so on. I'm sick to death. How can this be? Kimura Yudo looked like he was hit hard, making Hyuta Kazunari tremble even more. Obviously he was disgusted. Don't worry. Noah smiled indifferently. Now you can be free. Saying this, Noah stood up and walked in front of Hyuta Kazunari. Sensei. Feeling the atmosphere suddenly changed, Hyuta Kazunari couldn't help but take a step back. What do you want to do? Even Kimura Yudo felt the atmosphere was not right, so he asked. Sensei, what's wrong? Noah didn't speak, he just walked towards Hyuta Kazunari. His body was filled with dense magical power. With my power of words, let the justice of the world appear. This spell is powerful and eloquent, a sword of wisdom that calls for victory. Dazzling golden light instantly blossomed. Chapter 639. With the power of my words, let the justice of the world appear. This incantation is powerful and eloquent. It is the sword of wisdom that calls for victory. Like an ancient hymn, the words echoed clearly in the surroundings, and the entire space was covered in a bright golden light. A dazzling image of a warrior holding a golden sword suddenly appeared in front of Noah. Noah reached his hand into the brilliant pattern, and the next moment, he pulled out the sword. Clang! In an instant, the sword in Noah's hand shone brighter than any other golden light in the surroundings. It was a sword made entirely of gold, and there were inscriptions on the body of the sword that were hard to understand. It could only be used in the form of a warrior. It was a golden sword that could cut through divinity. Now Noah pointed the sword at Hatakazunari. Noah had a good understanding of the sacred gear in Hatakazunari's body. It was one of the 13 divine gears that existed today. It was the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, which was transformed from the legendary Red Dragon of the 2 heavenly dragons. It was the ultimate dragon's power, which could infinitely increase the user's power and transfer the increased power to others to increase the power of others. The red dragon that gave this power to Hatakazunari and lodged in Hatakazunari's body was called Drag of the Heavenly Dragons. Your power is too much of a burden for the current host. It's time for you to leave his body. Noah turned all the knowledge in his mind into materials to forge the sword in his hand. Hatakazunari was caught off guard and could not react at all. He stabbed the dazzling golden sword straight into Hatakazunari's chest. Splat! The sound of something being torn apart echoed. Hatakazunari froze and stared blankly at the golden sword that pierced his chest. He did not react for a long time. Ishinkun. Shiba Yuto was shocked and wanted to step forward, but he was stopped by Noah's calm voice. Watch quietly from the side, don't disturb. Hearing Noah's words, Shiba Yuto almost subconsciously stopped his footsteps. His body froze on the spot, and he no longer moved. At this time Noah's gaze fell on Issei Hatu. I'm sorry Huto-san, but as an extremely ordinary human, you seem to be unable to control the sacred gear in your body. It's too dangerous for you and it's also too dangerous for the people around you. So let me take it out. With that, Noah let go of the golden sword and let it stab into Hayato Issei's chest. Then he took a step back. Once the sacred gear made by the God of the Bible was lodged in a human's body, it was not impossible to take it out. In the manufacturing technology of the sacred gear that Asashel provided to Noah, there was a way to take the sacred gear out of someone's body. However, once the sacred gear was taken out of the host's body, the host's life would wither and disappear. Because when the sacred gear was lodged in a human's body, it was directly connected to the host's life. Therefore, in order to save Hatakazunari's life and safely remove the sacred gear from his body, Noah used the sword to cut off the connection between Hatakazunari and the sacred gear in his body. In this way, even if the sacred gear was removed, Hatakazunari would not die. Immediately, Noah opened his palm and pointed it in Hatakazunari's direction. Suddenly, a surge of magical power emerged from Noah's palm and turned into a solid light, enveloping Noah's entire palm. Come out! As these words fell, Noah's palm covered in the light directly pierced through Hatakazunari's chest. However, this did not cause any strange sound. Noah's palm seemed to have reached into the water, and a circle of ripples reverberated in Hatakazunari's chest as it pierced into Hatakazunari's body. Then Noah pulled his hand out. In Noah's hand, there was a red gauntlet with a green jade at the front that looked like a ferocious dragon's claw. It was quietly lying on top of the gauntlet, releasing an extremely shocking fluctuation. It was the fluctuation caused by the power of the dragon. Looking at the red gauntlet in his hand, Noah's eyes flashed. Is this the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? As long as there was enough time and the host's body had the ability to withstand it, it could temporarily raise the user's power to the level of God and Demon King. If it weren't for the fact that Issei Hayato didn't have any talents, he would have been able to reach the top with this sacred gear. He would have become an existence that demons, angels, fallen angels, and even other mythological systems wouldn't be able to ignore. After the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear left his body, Hatakazunari directly knelt on the ground and slowly fell down. The bright golden sword in his chest slowly dissipated. Ishinkun, Shiba Yuto, who had witnessed the whole process, quickly stepped forward and helped Hatakazunari up. When he found that Hatakazunari was still breathing, he heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Noah with a puzzled expression. I know you have a lot of questions, but for now it's better to settle Hata Kazunari down, Noah said directly. I have removed the sacred gear from his body. From now on, Hata Kazunari will not be targeted, and your guard duty will end here. Kiba Yuto, after you tell Hata Kazunari everything, you can return to Leah's side. Is that so? Kiba Yuto pondered for a moment and nodded. I understand. With that, Kiba Yuto carried Hata Kazunari on his back and left the infirmary. Noah did not know if it was an illusion. Noah always felt that Kiba Yuto was very regretful that he did not have to protect Hata Kazunari anymore. This made Noah's body tremble. Could it be that Hata Kazunari was really like what Hata Kazunari said? After thinking about this, Noah did not dare to think about it anymore. He quickly shook his head and turned his attention to the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear in his hand. At this time, Noah finally noticed. When he held the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, in Noah's heart, the stone plate with the pattern of the 10 avatars on its outline trembled slightly. Immediately, the 2 patterns on the outline of the stone plate began to flicker. One was a pattern that looked like a dragon but stood like a human. The other was a pattern of a golden beast roaring at the sky. It was the pattern of the Draconian avatar and the Golden Wolf avatar. What's going on? Noticing this strange phenomenon, Noah was stunned on the spot, and then he turned his attention to the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear again. Could it be because of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? It was a reasonable guess. After all, Noah's Draconian avatar and Golden Wolf avatar only reacted after he obtained the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Feeling the changes of the Draconian and Golden Wolf in his heart, Noah hesitated for a moment, but then he made up his mind. No matter what, let's try it first. After that, Noah raised the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear in his hand and pressed it hard on his chest. Buzz! In the next moment, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear made a trembling sound and merged into Noah's body. Chapter 640. Actually, in the beginning, Noah had never thought of fusing the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear into his body and using it for himself. The reason was simple. It wasn't because the divine gear that had the ability to infinitely multiply its power didn't move Noah, but because the sacred gear's uniqueness made it impossible for Noah to have any ideas about it. Everyone knew that the sacred gear was created by the God of the Bible. According to the records of the artificial sacred gear creation technique provided by Ather, after the god passed away, the sacred gear created by the god continued to exist under the control of the sacred gear system. In other words, the management of the sacred gear's lodging, function, effectiveness, performance, and so on were all managed by the sacred gear system, which was left behind by God. In this way, if Noah integrated the sacred gear into his body, it would inevitably cause 2 problems. 1. With Noah's tyrannical physique, after the sacred gear was integrated into Noah's body, if it was directly absorbed by Noah's body, it would completely become Noah's own power. Wouldn't that cause the system to be unable to manage the sacred gear in Noah's body, causing the sacred gear's function to become ineffective? If that was the case, then Noah would only be integrating a useless tool into his body, so it would be better not to have it. 2. If the sacred gear is still effective after being absorbed by Noah's tyrannical physique, does that mean that the sacred gear will no longer be able to activate the sacred gear once we leave this world and go to another world? Will the sacred gear become an inanimate object? This was also a problem. It must be known that Noah couldn't always stay in this world. After finding the world fragment, Noah would leave this world and go to the next world. At that time, if the system's management of the sacred gear could not pass through the world barrier and continue to take effect on Noah, then the sacred gear in Noah's body would be equivalent to being useless. Because of these 2 considerations, Noah didn't want to integrate the sacred gear made by the god into his body. Instead, he was very interested in the artificial sacred gear provided by Ather. After all, the artificial sacred gear of a satchel did not need to be managed by a system. All the functions of the sacred gear were within the sacred gear itself. Because of this, without the management of a system, most of the artificial sacred gear of a satchel were useless trash. Only a few of the sacred gear that had been cleverly processed with special methods were useful. And Noah didn't need so many sacred gear. As long as there was one that was useful, that was enough. Therefore, compared to the proper sacred gear, the artificial sacred gear was more interesting to Noah. But now, because of the strange movements of the draconian and golden wolf avatars, Noah changed his mind. Wang! The scarlet-red ferocious gauntlets trembled and integrated into Noah's body. When he closed his eyes, Noah could clearly feel that the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear that had entered his body was disintegrating bit by bit. Gradually, it turned into the purest form of energy, and it could not even maintain its form. Noah's consideration was indeed correct. Since the sacred gear that had integrated into his body had been decomposed into the purest form of power, it was definitely out of the system's control, and could no longer take effect. However, at this time, other changes occurred in Noah's body. First of all, the pure power that had entered his body suddenly split into two and integrated into Noah's body bit by bit, coming into contact with Noah's authority. Immediately, the two powers split into two. One flowed into the draconian, and the other flowed into the golden wolf, fusing with the power of the two avatars. The next moment, Noah felt his head buzzing, and his consciousness began to fade away. When Noah opened his eyes again, the scene that entered his eyes really gave Noah a fright. Pung! Only to see with the sound of swelling bursts of red flames burning around Noah, dyeing the entire space red. This was a space where there was nothing but flames. And in such a space, there were no other colors besides red. Noah was in such a red space, suspended above a sea of fire, surrounded by bursts of red flames. Undoubtedly, the surrounding was a sea of fire, but Noah did not feel the slightest bit of heat. Yo, my new partner, welcome to my place. At this time, a low voice suddenly sounded around him. Although I want to say that, but in fact this is the depths of your soul. It should be me who has come to your territory. Fate really makes fools of people. With such a voice in the sea of fire in front of him, a huge creature lifted the flames, straightened its body, and imprinted itself into Noah's eyes. It was a giant dragon. It was a gigantic dragon that was covered in red scales and surrounded by flames. Its entire body was emitting a terrifying pressure. Feeling the pressure from the giant dragon, Noah instantly understood. The giant dragon in front of him, in terms of strength, was probably not below Noah, who had the authority of the 10 incarnations, and was the God Slayer. Don't be so nervous, partner. Not knowing if it was aware of Noah's thoughts, the red giant dragon's voice became a little lighter. No matter how strong I am, that was when I was alive. Now I'm just a soul, and because I entered your body, I was directly absorbed by you and became a part of your soul. The saying of a soul in one body is most suitable to describe our current relationship. Speaking of this, the giant dragon's tone suddenly changed. Besides, if you are wary of me, the other existence in your soul will no longer be polite to me. Just as the giant dragon's voice fell, an earth-shattering roar resounded through the entire world of flames. Roar! In the midst of such a resounding roar, the sky in this space suddenly shook and turned into a bright golden color. A golden wolf that was not inferior in size to the dragon leaped out of the golden sky. With a boom, it landed directly in the red sea of fire. It ignored the surrounding flames and stared at the dragon with its ferocious beast eyes. It bared its fangs. Noah immediately stood up in surprise. Bio? Hearing Noah's voice, Bio did not turn back to respond to Noah. Instead, he stared closely at the giant dragon in front of him, his eyes full of vigilance. Bio, who even Warban and Luohao could not do anything to, was actually so wary of the giant dragon. One could imagine how strong the giant dragon was. However, since even Bio appeared here, it proved that the giant dragon's words were indeed true. This was the depths of Noah's soul. This was because Bio was lodging in Noah's soul. He was another consciousness in Noah's soul, an existence similar to a doppelganger. The giant dragon that appeared in the depths of Noah's soul, coupled with what it had just said, gave Noah a guess. Yes, I have now become an existence similar to your doppelganger, just like that wolf. Chapter 641. That's right, I have indeed become an existence similar to your doppelganger, just like that wolf. When the red dragon said this, Noah's heart calmed down, and he suddenly felt enlightened. Thus, Noah controlled his body and lightly floated into the air. He then landed on the head of Bio, whose body size was not much different from the dragon in front of him, and looked forward. You are the Red Dragon Emperor of the two heavenly dragons, right? Have you guessed it? The dragon's ferocious beast eyes moved down and met Noah's gaze. That's right, I am the Red Dragon Emperor of the two heavenly dragons, Drake. In the ancient war between the three great powers, the Crimson Sky Dragon had fought with another Sky Dragon on the battlefield and messed up the entire battle. The Crimson Sky Dragon's soul had been turned into a sacred gear. Because of that, now that dragon appeared in the depths of Noah's soul, and even claimed to be another doppelganger of Noah, just like Bio. To be honest, I am very surprised, Drake said to Noah with great interest. I never thought that as a soul sealed in the sacred gear, I would actually come back to life in this form, and become your doppelganger and partner. Your origin seems to be very unusual. Since you have become an existence with the same soul as me, just like Bio, living as my doppelganger and lodging in my soul, then you will soon know my origin. There is no need to ask. Noah shook his head and looked straight at Drake. It's just that I never thought that after fusing with the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, you would be released from the sacred gear, and even your soul would fuse into one. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, for you and me it should be a good thing, right? Drake said directly. Now I have become another consciousness in your soul. I can feel that, just like the wolf, as long as you as the main body provide magic, I can materialize the soul that is fused with you, and become your beast to help you fight. This way I can also move around outside for a short period of time. This is a good thing, right? If this is not a good thing, then I really don't know what is. Noah bitterly laughed. Being able to use you as one of the two heavenly dragons, even I feel a little unbelievable when I think of this fact. One must know that the two dragons known as the two heavenly dragons were the ones that messed up the battlefield of the three powers, and made the three powers helpless. They could only be led by the gods, and the demon king they could only be subdued. Therefore, among the top 10 existences that Wally once mentioned, Drake could definitely occupy a place to be. In other words, Noah had obtained a doppelganger that could be ranked in the top 10 of this world, and would definitely not be weaker than any of the godslayers. This was not something that could be described as great improvement in strength. Don't say that, partner. Drake glanced at Bio, who was staring at him under Noah's body, and said with a smile that was not a smile, that wolf's strength is not below mine. To be able to have such a doppelganger, perhaps you absorbing my soul is something that was destined, right? Then Drake, as the center of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, your soul has already fused with my soul. Can I still use the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? Noah asked what he was concerned about. I have always felt that with my physique, I would definitely directly absorb the power of the sacred gear that entered my body, and would no longer be controlled by the sacred gear system. This way, the sacred gear that has always existed under the control of the sacred gear system should directly lose its effect, right? Perhaps the other sacred gears are like this, but I am different. Drake replied. The ability of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear originally came from my own strength. The God of the Bible sealed my soul into the sacred gear, which allowed the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear to be born. Now you have completely absorbed my strength and soul. Even if the sacred gear is no longer under the control of the system, it should still be effective. Hearing this, Noah's eyes lit up, and his heart suddenly shook. That is to say, I can still use the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? It should be possible. Drake nodded. I can feel that when I entered your body, my strength and soul that was residing in the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear were separated. My soul directly merged with your soul and became your doppelganger. My strength seemed to have been absorbed by your body, so it should still be effective. Speaking up to this point, Drake's tone became a little complicated. Originally, after the death of the sacred gear host, the sacred gear in the host's body would automatically be transferred to the next host. Now that my existence has already separated from the sacred gear, I have become your doppelganger. Although I am happy that I can still move around outside, if you, as the main body, die as the doppelganger, I will definitely die. Really, is this a good thing? Hearing this, Noah finally remembered. When it merged into Noah's body, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was indeed separated into two forces. One force merged into the Dragonman doppelganger, and the other merged into the Golden Wolf doppelganger. If what Drake said was true, then Noah's two doppelgangers should have also changed. Thinking up to this point, Noah could no longer sit still. Then, Drake, I will go out first and see if there are any changes to my strength. I will take care of you in the future, partner. Drake laughed. The little guy called Bio, as another consciousness in the soul, is also a doppelganger of the main body. We will also take care of you in the future. Bio glanced at Drager and turned his head away, ignoring Drager. Seeing this, Drake bitterly smiled. So cold, as expected of a wolf. Looking at the interaction between Drager and Bio, Noah smiled faintly and flashed, disappearing on the spot. Noah realized that 2 of the pictures in his 10 doppelganger had changed. One of them turned into a crimson dragon. The other turned into a herd of beasts running wildly in the distance. After coming into contact with these 2 pictures, Noah learned how to use the new doppelganger. Dragon Emperor. A doppelganger formed by combining the power of the Dragon Man and the Red Dragon Emperor. Ability 1. Able to transform the body into a dragon's constitution and use the power of the dragon. Ability 2. Able to possess the power of Dragon Kill, which is highly lethal to dragons. Ability 3. Able to obtain the power of Air Scales, which is comparable to an immortal body. Ability 4. Able to possess the power of close combat that surpasses wildness and intuition. Ability 5. Able to materialize the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear and use the power of the Sacred Gear to obtain the power of multiplication and transfer. Herd of Beasts. A doppelganger formed by combining the souls of the Golden Wolf and the Red Dragon Emperor. Ability 1. Able to summon the doppelganger of the fantasy breed that has the ability to crush everything in the soul for the user to use. Ability 2. Able to summon the doppelganger of the Red Dragon Emperor that has the ability to directly affect the target and ignore any obstacles in the soul for the user to use. Ability 3. Able to directly give the user the ability to crush and penetrate. After absorbing the power and soul of the Red Dragon Emperor, Noah's Dragon Man and Golden Wolf doppelganger finally evolved. Dragon Emperor. Herd of Beasts. Noah became stronger again. Chapter 642. On the rooftop of Horse King Academy, Noah opened the door to the rooftop and walked in. After closing the door, he came to the center. Lowering his head, Noah looked at his hands. He gently clenched his fists and closed his eyes. In Noah's heart, the image of a crimson dragon automatically appeared. All evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now I will obtain the majesty of 10 mountains, the strength of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 dragons. The majestic me will raise the ferocious power to slay dragons. He chanted the words of obtaining the dragon's power. At this moment, Noah used the Dragon Emperor's incarnation. The power of a dragon burst out from Noah's body and flowed into his limbs, filling Noah's body. Immediately, Noah suddenly opened his eyes and stretched out his hand. Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah's hand suddenly flashed with a dazzling light. The crimson light gradually condensed into substance and turned into a ferocious gauntlet like a dragon's claw. It was a gauntlet that covered Noah's entire body below his elbow. It was completely crimson and there was a bright green jade on the back of his hand. It was none other than the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. As soon as Noah entered the Dragon Emperor avatar's usage state and materialized the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, he immediately obtained 2 ways to use the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. 1. Multiply. Every 10 seconds it could double Noah's strength. 2. Transfer. It could transfer the increased strength to others and increase the strength of others. These 2 abilities were exactly the same as the rumors. At that moment, Noah poured the magic power in his body into the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear in his hand. Boost! Suddenly, the green jade on the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear flashed with light, and a low voice sounded. The voice was exactly the same as Drake's voice, but it was slightly more mechanical. At the same time, Noah felt that his physical strength, which was originally comparable to a dragon due to the incarnation of the Dragon Emperor, had doubled in an instant. Of course, this increase was only temporary and could only be maintained for a short time. However, to be able to increase his strength every 10 seconds was indeed a violation of the rules. I remember Wally said that if the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear reaches the balance breaker level, then it can multiply its power at any time and in any ratio. Feeling his strength multiplying over and over again with the passing of every 10 seconds, Noah fell into deep thought. If I can also reach balance breaker, then my strength will truly be terrifying. Every sacred gear had its own balance breaker. However, among the possessors of the sacred gear who could achieve the balance breaker, there was probably less than 5% of them who could do so. After all, to reach balance breaker, one's longing and desire had to be so intense that it could reverse the flow of the world. If anyone could do it, then the sacred gear alone would be able to make demons, angels, and fallen angels have no place to stand. They would no longer dare to look down on humans. Reverse the flow of the world. Noah's eyes flickered. It was unknown what he thought, but the corners of his mouth slowly rose. Perhaps reaching balance breaker wouldn't be difficult for me at all. Just as he said this, Noah felt a sharp pain coming from every part of his body. It was only then that Noah seemed to have thought of something. He hurriedly stopped increasing the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear and smiled bitterly. Infinitely multiplying, sure enough, it is not that easy. Noah had known about this for a long time. If someone really thought that using Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, there was no limit to the increase of power, then they were too naive. To give a simple example, once Noah's giant incarnation was used, the powerful divine power could not be manifested by Noah's human body. He could only summon a giant to manifest the enormous power that could split heaven and earth. Another example was that if the phoenix incarnation was used for too long, Noah's body would not be able to bear the burden. The reason was the same. It was like a truck. Although it could carry a lot of goods, if the truck carried far more goods than it could carry, then not only would it not be able to move, it might even overturn. If the goods were multiplied, then Noah himself was the truck. If the goods were multiplied again and again, Noah's truck would not be able to move, and there would even be times when it would overturn. In other words, if the power increased too much, it would only be a burden on Noah's body. Even if the multiplying of Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was indeed infinite, Noah, the user, had a limit. This was the limitation of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Coupled with the fact that it still needed time to be used, Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear had a weakness. In addition, Noah's Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear had another limitation. This limitation was limited to Noah alone. In the next second, Noah cancelled the use of the Dragon Emperor incarnation. Clang! In Noah's hand, Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear flashed and disappeared. As expected, Noah murmured, "If I cancel the Dragon Emperor incarnation, does that mean I can't use Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear?" After all, it was a power that was fused with authority. Once the use of authority was cancelled, it would naturally not be able to be maintained. This was a limitation that only Noah had. Although there is such a limitation, I have also obtained a power that normal Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear holders do not have. Noah suddenly smiled. I can summon Drag and have a Sky Dragon help me fight. In addition, Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear is also free from the system's control. Even if I go to another world, I can still use it. There are pros and cons, but the pros outweigh the cons. Therefore, Noah was very satisfied with the result. Bang! At this moment, in a corner of the school, a muffled explosion sounded. Although the sound was weakened due to the distance, Noah still caught it. What's going on? Noah frowned. When he looked at the source of the sound, his expression changed again. It's the direction of the old school. Without hesitation, Noah directly jumped up, fiercely stepped on the fence of the rooftop, jumped, and rushed in the direction of the old school. Clang! When Noah arrived at the old school building, the sound of steel clashing against steel echoed in the air. Noah immediately stopped, looked in front, and was stunned. Clang! He saw that in front of the old school, two people were each holding a sword, fiercely slashing together, causing a lot of sparks. Of the two people, one was holding the holy sword of destruction, Genova. The other one was Kiba Yudo, with a gloomy face and a sinister demonic sword in his hand. Why are these two fighting? Noah was shocked. Then, the door of the old school opened, and Leah's and the Jiminori family all ran out, led by Kiba Yudo. Leah's shouted, "Stop right now!" To Noah's surprise, Kiba Yudo actually ignored Leah's and continued to charge at Genova. This time Genova was furious. "If that's the case, I won't hold back anymore." With that, Genova raised his holy sword and charged out as well. Chapter 643. Clang! Two long trajectories were drawn as Genova and Shiba Yudo, who were wielding a sacred sword and a demonic sword, collided with each other in the middle of the empty space in front of the old school building, causing a crisp sound of collision. Screech! The sacred sword and demonic sword collided with each other, and the sharp sound of friction produced an unusually violent spark. However, this situation did not last long. Gotcha! At a certain moment, the demonic sword in Shiba Yudo's hand made a cracking sound, and Shiba Yudo's expression changed slightly. As a knight, you should be good at speed. You shouldn't be fighting me head-on. Looking at Shiba Yudo's slightly changed expression, Genova seemed to have predicted this situation and said calmly, "Although I'm also a knight, I'm not only good at speed. What's more, the holy sword of destruction in my hand is a holy sword that specializes in destruction. You'll only embarrass yourself if you fight me head-on. It's better to calm down first." After that, Genova clenched his fist and suddenly raised the sacred sword in his hand. Bang! The demon sword in Shiba Yudo's hand immediately shattered, turning into pure fragments. It then turned into nothingness and completely disappeared in midair. Shiba Yudo gritted his teeth in hatred. It's not over yet. Amidst the shouts, Kimura Yudo raised his hand. Mana surged in his hand, and a magic formation suddenly expanded from his palm. Inside the formation, another sword with ominous fluctuations appeared and fell into Kimura Yudo's hand. Oh! Genova raised his eyebrows. I see you are not the user of the demonic sword, but the wielder of the sacred gear? That's right, this is my sacred gear sword birth. It can create any demonic sword that opposes the power of the sacred sword. Shiba Yudo pointed the demonic sword in his hand at Genova. My wish is to destroy all the sacred swords, but in the end, I awaken the sacred gear that can create demonic swords. This is fate. Destroy all the sacred swords. Genova's eyebrows tightly knitted together. Why do you have such a pathetic wish? Is it sad? Kimura Yudo smiled, but his smile was unusually sad. Because my fate has always been very pitiful. Seeing Shiba Yudo's sorrowful expression, Genova's fighting spirit and anger were greatly reduced. I won't deny your past, but I advise you to give up on this idea. Although the holy sword and the demon sword are weapons that counter each other, their power is exactly the same. However, the demon sword in your hand isn't a real demon sword. It's only made from the sacred gear, so its power definitely can't compare to a real demon sword. It won't be able to destroy the holy sword. Perhaps facing the real king's sword, my sacred gear wouldn't be able to destroy it, but fortunately the king's sword has been split into 7 pieces, and its power has been greatly reduced. Shiba Yudo coldly said, if it's just a split holy sword, then I can destroy it with my sacred gear. With that, Shiba Yudo raised the demon sword in his hand and charged forward. Seeing this, Genova had no choice but to raise the holy sword and charge forward instead of retreating. Stop! Beside him, Liaz yelled, but she couldn't stop Shiba Yudo from acting on his own. What the hell? That man! Irina yelled as if she was fighting for justice. Can't you give him some time to talk? No one answered Irina's question. Or rather, no one had the time to answer Irina's question. Just as Genova and Shiba Yudo were about to clash again, a figure darted between the two of them. Clink. Both the holy sword and the demonic sword came to a stop at the same time with a crisp sound. Because on the holy sword and the demon sword, there were 2 fingers clamping down on the 2 swords, stopping them in their tracks. Genova and Shiba Yudo were both shocked, and they were only surprised when they saw the full face of the person who clamped the holy sword and the demon sword. Sensei, what are you two doing? Noah asked with a frown as he held the holy sword and the demon sword between his fingers with ease. Both of you are Liaz's kin and you're fighting? Do you want to be a joke? As he spoke, Noah flicked the holy sword and the demon sword between his fingers with all his might. Clang. It was as though a heavy object had struck the 2 swords. Amidst the resounding sound of metal clashing, Genova and Shiba Yudo couldn't stop their bodies from explosively retreating. Only after retreating 2 to 3 steps did they finally come to a stop. Liaz and the others who saw this all breathed a sigh of relief and quickly stepped forward. Yudo. Liaz glared at Shiba Yudo a little angrily. Do you know what you're doing? Of course I know what I'm doing and I know it very well. Kiba Yuto answered with a cold voice that he had never used before. The minister should know why I'm doing this. Is there a need to ask? Yuto. Leah suddenly fell silent as if she was sad. Even Junai and the kitten turned their heads away. Only Aisha, Irina, and Laybel looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Perhaps you have your own reasons for doing this. I heard a little of your conversation just now. You're doing this to destroy the Holy Sword, aren't you? Noah glanced at Kiba Yuto. But if your goal is the Holy Sword, why did you attack Genova? Or are you the type to attack your comrades? Kiba Yuto opened his mouth, but he couldn't find the words to retort. Sensei, don't blame him. He did attack the Holy Sword beside me out of the blue, but I instinctively retaliated. At this time, it was Genova who stood up and spoke up for Yuto. He even said to Yuto, "Don't worry. I'm sorry. I know you have your reasons, but I won't just sit by and watch you destroy the Holy Sword. Soon the three factions will have a meeting because of Korkabor. If you destroy the Holy Sword at this time, it might cause some kind of conflict. Well, although the Holy Sword can continue to be reforged as long as the core of the Holy Sword isn't destroyed, who knows if the Church will use this as an excuse to make things difficult for the demons in the upcoming meeting between the three forces." Irina seemed to be reminding him kindly. Even if that's the case, it won't matter? Kiba Yuto's expression became uncertain. I've heard about you from the minister, Genova suddenly said. Can we talk? I have something to tell you. Soon Genova and Irina led the silent Kiba Yuto into a nearby forest. No one knew what they were talking about. Looking at Kiba Yuto, who was walking into the forest with Genova and Irina, Riaz spoke softly. Do you know about the Holy Sword project? Noah's heart skipped a beat, but he did not answer. Instead, he chose to listen quietly. Everyone knows that the Holy Sword is the most powerful weapon against demons. As long as a demon touches the Holy Sword, its body will be scorched, killed, or even destroyed. The reason why Genova and Irina can still use the Holy Sword now is because they have adjusted the holy power of the Holy Sword to a mode that demons can use as well. Riaz mumbled to herself. To the believers of the Church who believe in their God and see demons as their enemy, the Holy Sword is the ultimate weapon. So, a few years ago, the Church tried to cultivate people who can use the Holy Sword. Cultivate? Noah's frown deepened. Can the user of the Holy Sword be cultivated? The only ones who can wield the Holy Sword are those who are naturally suited for it. But wouldn't it be beneficial for the Church if they could artificially cultivate those who could wield the Holy Sword? Leith sighed. And so the Holy Sword Project was born. At this point, Riaz did not need to continue. Noah understood. Kiba Yuto was the guinea pig of the Holy Sword Project. And a guinea pig that did not end well. Chapter 644. About an hour later, Genova and Irina brought Kiba Yuto into the Supernatural Research Department with a pained expression. There were obvious traces of crying on his face. Seeing this, no one came forward to ask what happened, and no one went to comfort Kiba Yuto. They just looked at him quietly and chose to give him silent encouragement. As for what Genova and Irina talked about with Kiba Yuto, no one in the room knew. Perhaps Riaz knew about it, but she seemed determined to leave Kiba Yuto's affairs to Genova and Irina, as if she had steeled her heart to stay out of it. Of course, while no one knew what Genova and Irina said to Kiba Yuto no longer attacked the sacred sword madly like before. He even returned to his usual self. After apologizing to Riaz, he stepped aside as if nothing had happened. However, Kiba Yuto still told Riaz the truth about Hyodo Kazunari. In other words, the sacred gear is no longer in Hyodo Kazunari's body, and you took out the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? After listening to Kiba Yuto's report, Riaz looked at Noah in surprise. Then where is that Longinus now? Noah did not answer. Instead, he used facts to prove his point. The symbol in his heart that represented the Dragon Emperor's incarnation shone. Feeling the draconic power flowing in his body, Noah extended his hand to Riaz. Clang! In the next moment, with a flash, a ferocious crimson gauntlet covered Noah's outstretched arm. All the girls in the room were stunned. You! Riaz gasped in surprise. You've become the host of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? What's wrong? Noah asked, puzzled. Is there a problem? including Riaz, Junai, Kitten, Aisha, Genova, Irina, Label, and even Kiba Yuto were dumbfounded. What's wrong? There was no problem. However, this fact really made it difficult for him to express his current feelings. Noah was already a god-slayer to begin with. Now, with the addition of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, who wouldn't feel their hearts churning? A combination of Campione and Longinus? She laughed bitterly. It's really like a joke. One had to know that the Longinus was said to be able to destroy gods and demons. The sacred gear, on the other hand, would only be possessed by humans. Under such circumstances, even an ordinary human who obtained the Longinus would have a chance to destroy the gods and demon kings, let alone an existence that had the ability to kill gods. Just like what Leah said, Noah's current existence was like a joke. At this time, another voice rang in Noah's heart. Really, even I feel like your existence is like a joke. Suddenly hearing this voice, Noah almost jumped in fright. However, after regaining his senses, Noah's expression remained unchanged, but he was surprised in his heart. Drake? Are you awake? The reason for this question was entirely because the consciousness that resided in Noah's soul was usually in a muddled state of deep sleep. Bio was like that, among other things. After all, although he was Noah's clone, in fact, even his soul had been devoured by Noah's soul, leaving only a consciousness that resided in Noah's soul. Once Noah provided magic, the consciousness that resided in Noah's soul would awaken, construct its own body with magic, and descend into the outside world to listen to the orders of Noah, the host that provided life. Therefore, rather than saying that the relationship between Noah and Bio was a main body and a clone, it was better to say that it was a simple beast tamer and a servant. However, without Noah, the beast tamer, to provide magic, Bio as a servant, would not have a body, let alone a soul. Only a pure consciousness resided in Noah's soul. It was precisely because even his soul had been devoured by Noah's soul that Bio, who only had a consciousness left, could only fall into a state of deep sleep. He would only wake up when Noah called or under special circumstances. For example, when Drake, as the second pure consciousness, resided in Noah's soul, it stimulated the sleeping Bio, causing Bio to wake up. Therefore, without Noah's permission or such a special situation, as a consciousness that was purely residing in Noah's soul, Drake shouldn't be able to stay in a conscious state during normal times. This should also be considered a special circumstance, right? In Noah's heart, Drake's voice continued to sound. Perhaps it's because you used the power that originally belonged to me. Aside from being summoned by you, when you used the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, I could also sense something in your soul and wake up. In other words, Drake would only wake up when Noah used the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? Don't worry about me. Other than being summoned by you, I will only wake up when you use the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. When you cancel the materialization of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, I will fall into a deep sleep again. Hearing this, Noah nodded in his heart and immediately canceled the materialization of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. He smiled at Riaz, who was opposite him. The Godslayer Campione, using the Godslayer Longinus, sounds very suitable, doesn't it? It's more than suitable. I don't even know what words to use to describe it. Riaz continued to smile bitterly. I think that the current you is definitely the strongest Red Dragon Emperor in all of history, and there will be no one to surpass you in the future, right? Hearing this, Noah raised an eyebrow. The strongest Red Dragon Emperor in history? Perhaps so. After all, even Varley, who had the Demon King's bloodline, was called the strongest White Dragon Emperor in history by a Sashal, let alone Noah, who was a god slayer. Since you have become the Red Dragon Emperor, then the White Dragon Emperor should have his eyes on you again, right? Riaz seemed to have thought of Varley and asked Noah, "What are you going to do?" "Wally." Noah narrowed his eyes, and then he suddenly changed the topic. "Oh right, when will the meeting between the three factions be held?" The meeting between the three factions? Riaz was stunned for a moment before she answered truthfully. "It will be held tomorrow. As for the location, it will be in Chariot King Academy." "It's in Chariot King Academy?" Noah was surprised. "Why did you choose this place?" "The reason is simple. As the Demon King's sister and the center of Korkabor's incident, Kana and I are both here. Even the governor of the fallen angels, Asashal, is here. So we decided to hold the meeting here." Riaz said with a slight headache. To be honest, I'm a little worried myself. Whatever Riaz was worried about, someone immediately said it for her. Hey! Irina raised her hand in trepidation. What if the three factions break down during the meeting and start fighting here? Everyone was silent. This was the problem that everyone was worried about. Just how confident are you in the relationship between the three major forces? While saying this, Noah recalled Asa Shur's words. Don't worry, I'll be there for the meeting tomorrow. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Teacher, you'll be there too? That's right, Asashal asked me to do it. Maybe it's because he doesn't want the three factions to fight after the talks break down. That's why he needs me to be there, right? Noah stood up and stretched. So don't worry, I'll do it if necessary. This was what they needed to worry about the most. Chapter 645. Since Noah mentioned the meeting between the three factions, Leah began to explain to her family members what needed to be done in the meeting undoubtedly, to prevent anyone from making mistakes. Especially Shiba Yudo, who had been staying by Hyuta Kazunari's side all this while to protect and observe Hyuta Kazunari. He did not participate in Korkabor's incident, and there were many things that he did not know. Therefore, the necessary explanations were necessary. As Leah explained to Shiba Yudo about the meeting tomorrow, Noah, who was about to leave, was stopped by Genova. Teacher, do you have anything to do next? I'm fine. Noah tilted his head. What? Do you have something to say? Yes, I have a very important matter to discuss with you, Genova said in a serious tone. So, can you come with me first? What is it? Is there anything interesting? Beside them, Irina, who was bored by Leah's explanation, quickly joined them. Then count me in too. Does Irina want it too? Genova was obviously stunned. After a moment of serious consideration, he nodded. Just like me, Irina was banished by the church. That's fine, I'll count Irina in. Yay! Irina cheered. Well then, teacher. Genova turned around. Please come with me. Then Genova walked out of the room, and Irina quickly followed him. Seeing this, Noah followed curiously. What was it that could make Genova so serious? In the old school building, other than the supernatural research department, there were many other rooms and classrooms. With Genova leading the way, Noah and Irina came to one of the empty classrooms. Then Genova turned to face Noah and spoke with a serious expression on his face. I say, teacher, do you want to have a child with me? Noah's expression froze when he realized what Genova was planning to do with him. What did Genova say just now? If he did not hear wrongly, he seemed to want to invite Noah to have a child with him? Have a child, right? Am I right? Surely he didn't hear wrongly? Huh. Elena, who came in with him, was also stunned. When she came to her senses, she let out a cry of surprise. Huh. Ah. However, when Irina screamed, Genova quickly covered her mouth with his hand. Irina, don't be so loud. You'll be discovered. Woo 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 woo. Elena, on the other hand, shook her head with all her might and struggled in a flurry. Her pretty face was completely red. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched when he saw Genova revealing such a serious expression and saying such words. Do you know what you're saying? What? Was it difficult to understand? Then I'll start from the beginning. Genova nodded and spoke to Noah with a serious expression that did not look like he said such unscrupulous words. I grew up in the headquarters of the church because I was born with the talent to use the holy sword. Therefore, since I was young, the people in the church have been teaching me how to use the sword and diligently learning combat skills for God and religion. When I was young, I was also instilled with the thought that I must fight for God. My dreams and goals were all related to God and faith. I became a sword saint purely for God and preached for Vatican City. I deeply believed in all of this and never doubted it. Genova looked straight into Noah's eyes. But now God is dead. My faith has nowhere to go and even turned into a demon. It can be said that I have completely lost my goals and dreams. I don't even know the meaning of my life anymore. Hearing Genova's words, Irina calmed down and fell into silence. She seemed to empathize with Genova. I know that Aisha was in the same situation as you. After being expelled by the church, she was very confused. She didn't even know where I came from and directly sought refuge with me. It was as if she had lost the meaning of her life. Noah took a deep breath and smiled bitterly. But what does that have to do with you wanting to have children? Of course it has something to do with it, Genova said without hesitation. At first I was still confused about what I should do, but when I was drunk at teacher's house and almost had sex I understood. Genova said as Noah and Irina stared blankly at him. When I was still serving God, I gave up my consciousness as a woman. For my faith for God, I offered my body, my soul, and my everything to God. But now I'm a demon. I have the right to take back what I gave up and live as a woman. So my new goal and new dream is to have children. Noah didn't know how to react to all of this. Therefore, Noah could only spit out these words with a stiff face. Then why did you choose me to be the father of your child? Isn't that obvious? Genova had a strange look on his face. Since I'm going to have a child, of course I want it to be a strong and healthy child. You're the unprecedented Godslayer and the legendary Red Dragon Emperor. As the child's father, you're the most suitable, aren't you? While saying this, Genova looked at Irina. Irina, you also want a strong and healthy child, right? Eh? You're asking me? Irina was a little confused. If I'm going to have a child, of course I want the child to be strong and healthy, but... See, even Irina thinks so, right? Genova seemed to be emboldened as he raised his head and puffed out his chest. Then Elena, come and have a child with me. Huh? Elena exclaimed once again. I want one too. Isn't that obvious? Genova patted Irina's shoulder. Just like me, Irina once swore to dedicate everything to the Lord. Now, she has reincarnated into a demon just like me. Then you should also be like me. Release everything of the woman you once abandoned and fulfill the responsibilities of a woman, right? Is that so? The naive Irina was even more confused. I see. I also have to fulfill my responsibilities as a woman. Don't agree. Noah finally couldn't help but say. Don't you know how much your thoughts are worth ridiculing? Unfortunately, Noah's words were automatically ignored by Genova. No matter what, it's indeed a pity that we didn't manage to have a child the last time. So, let's take this opportunity to make a child. Genova didn't know how shameless his words were. He reached out and hugged Noah. It was believed that Genova would be able to hug Noah completely soon. This made Noah's brain go blank. Irina. However, at this moment, Genova seemed to have thought of something. He turned around and faced the confused Irina. You two. Then, without giving Irina a chance to react, Genova walked towards Irina as though he was going to do something to her. Wait. Irina hurriedly began to resist. However, Genova forcefully pushed the flustered Irina towards Noah. Noah instinctively reached out and pulled Irina into his arms. Am I finally going to welcome this moment too? Irina, who was still in a mess, closed her eyes. Her beautiful face was filled with motherly love. Ah, Lord, what should I do? Come on. Genova appeared behind Noah and hugged him. You can do whatever you want. Being squeezed by a girl from the front and back, Noah felt that his heart was really breaking down bit by bit. This level of feeling was naturally incomparable to the last time when Liath and the other 7 girls pounced on him. However, no matter which time it was and how many people there were, that wasn't the main problem. The main problem was that Noah really couldn't get used to it, could he? Therefore, Noah was on the verge of tears. Can you not do this every time? At this moment, the classroom door opened. Outside, Labelle's pretty face was red as she yelled. Don't even think about monopolizing Lord Noah. As soon as she said that, Labelle also pounced on him. Instantly, the classroom became a mess. Chapter 646. Because of Labelle's interference, Noah naturally did not manage to accomplish anything in the end. After that, Noah found out that Labelle had found Noah, who was abducted into the classroom of the old school building, and even dragged Irina along. It was all because Labelle had seen Noah leave the paranormal research department and secretly followed him. It was not just this time. Noah had already discovered many times that ever since Labelle became Leah's dependent and came to the human world, the little girl would often secretly follow him behind like a stalker. In any case, thanks to Labelle, Genova and Irina's plan to have a child was completely ruined. However, after that, Genova also said this to Noah with a serious face. It's really regrettable that we were interrupted this time. I'll look for you next time when I have the chance, teacher. Of course I'll bring Irina along. Possible I'd like to bring Aisha too. After all, we're all believers who have dedicated our lives to the Lord. Aisha must be very lost right now. And I need to bring Aisha and Irina together to find the true joy of being a woman. When the time comes, I'll leave it to you, teacher. After saying this, Genova gradually left with a determined expression, leaving Noah dumbfounded. This girl was actually planning to bring her family to Noah to have a child together? Did this mean that Noah had profited? Or that the church's trio had profited? In any case, that day, Noah truly understood how terrifying Genova was. It was estimated that in the following period of time, Noah would have to work hard to protect his chastity. After all, no matter what, Noah would not really push Aisha, Genova, and Irina away just because of Genova's words. At least he had to be mentally prepared, right? Just like that, Noah welcomed the second day. Today was the day of the meeting between the three major factions. At the moment, the Jamanli's dependents led by Leah had already begun their preparations and met up with city's dependents led by Tsongna to discuss the arrangements for the meeting. Due to the meeting between the three major factions, the Colt King Academy had a special day off today. Of course, the students did not know that the reason for the holiday was because the three major factions wanted to have a meeting here. As the true master of the Colt King Academy, Leah had arranged for the school to have a day off today. Under such circumstances, Noah closed his eyes in the empty space in front of the old school building. In his mind, the stone plate with 10 patterns on its outline suddenly turned and pointed at the Dragon Emperor's clone. Clang! A scarlet gauntlet on Noah's right hand. Boost! Immediately after, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear made a sound, and the jade on the back of his hand flashed, allowing power to flow into Noah's body. This way, the Dragon Emperor's clone, the Dragon Emperor's clones, would double 10 seconds later. Boost! With another sound, Noah's power doubled again. The power from the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear surged all over Noah's body. After continuously strengthening himself for about 5 times, Noah felt that his body had become heavier. This was a sign that the multiplied power was gradually becoming a burden. At that moment, Noah opened his eyes and raised the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Explosion release. In the next instant, a brand new voice reverberated from the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, causing the crimson-red gauntlet to shine with resplendent lines. This sound meant to stop the multiplied power. Simply put, it was a kind of braking device. When this device was activated, Noah's Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear would stop increasing his strength, allowing Noah to fight for a period of time with his strength increased. And the length of this period of time would depend on the actions taken during this period. The more active Noah was and the more he attacked, the shorter the period of time it would be maintained. Also, if Noah was in a state of exhaustion, the period of time it could be used would also be shortened. Therefore, using this was one of the tricks of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. As for not activating this device, Noah's power would naturally increase during the multiplied period. However, compared to activating this device, stopping the multiplied power and maintaining the increased power, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear's power would be more unstable. If this device was not activated and Noah casually moved, there would be a risk of the multiplied power being reset and returning to its original state. Therefore, stopping the multiplied power before using this ability was still quite reliable. Therefore, the extraordinary power began to run wildly in Noah's body. If Noah's original power was compared to 1, then after the first multiplied power, Noah's power would become 2. After the second multiplied power, the 2 power would become 4. After the third multiplied power, it would become 8. So on, the fourth multiplied power would be 16, and the fifth multiplied power would be 32. This allowed Noah's power to increase to 32 times its original power. And when Noah's Dragon Emperor avatar was used, Noah could obtain power comparable to a giant dragon. In other words, now the power flowing in Noah's body was 32 times that of a giant dragon's power. Noah, who clearly knew how powerful he was now, could not help but murmur, "If I could still use the balance breaker." In that case, the Dragon Emperor avatar would become the third most powerful among Noah's 10 avatars. I just don't know if my sacred gear can reach the balance breaker level. This was the only thing Noah was worried about. It was out of the control of the system, and when it entered Noah's body, it was completely transformed into pure energy. The power of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was now only in the form of a sacred gear. so it should be considered as an ability of the Dragon Emperor incarnation. Therefore, strictly speaking, Noah's Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was no longer a proper sacred gear. I hope it works. Just as Noah was about to continue exploring the boosted gear's ability, the door of the old schoolhouse opened, and Lias led a group of family members out of the old schoolhouse. Noah, who exchanged glances with Lias, immediately understood and cancelled the use of the Dragon Emperor avatar. Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear automatically disappeared when the Dragon Emperor avatar was cancelled. Then, Noah joined Liath's group and stood side by side with her. Together, they walked toward the schoolhouse with a group of Zamanli's family members. The entire Cult King Academy was covered by a thick layer of crystal-like barrier. Within the barrier around the Cult King Academy, small teams formed by the three major factions demons, angels and fallen were patrolling everywhere, filling the entire school with a solemn atmosphere. Walking in a corridor of the schoolhouse, Lias was explaining to Noah. This time, the meeting will be held in the schoolhouse's conference room. The representatives of the three factions will be present. The demons will be represented by the great demon king Lucifer, the angels will be represented by the highest-ranking Michael, and the fallen will be represented by the viceroy Athaziel. Kangna, my family, and I will be attending the meeting. Also, you and the White Dragon Emperor's Wali will also be attending the meeting. Lucifer, Michael, and Athaziel. Noah sighed. In other words, the three most powerful rulers of the three factions are here? Yes. Lias nodded heavily. Originally, Lady Seraphil, who is also the current Leviathan and Kangna's elder sister, who is in charge of diplomacy, should be present as well. However, that lady is in an emotional state because Korkabor kidnapped Kangna and planned to kill her. If she were to come, I'm afraid that things will not end well. With such ominous words, the group finally arrived at the conference room. Lias pushed the door open and exposed the situation inside. Chapter 647. What appeared in front of Noah and the others was a vast conference room. There was a table in the conference room, and it looked quite luxurious. There were only 3 seats next to it, and one could tell at a glance who they were for. And on the seats, 3 people had already sat down. The first was naturally the representative of the demons, the demon king Lucifer Syzax, who had the same bright red hair as Lias. Then, the fallen angel governor, Asashel, who had changed out of his previous kimono and put on a rather decent robe. The last one was someone Noah had never seen before. It was a very handsome man, even more handsome than Kibayudo. He had a dignified appearance, a kind face, and a halo floating above his head. If the characteristics of the demons were their bat-like wings, and the fallen angels' characteristics were their pitch-black wings, then the halo floating above their heads was one of the characteristics of the angels. Then, there was no need to doubt who this person who sat on the same level as the demon king and the fallen angel governor was. The commander of the heavens, the leader of the angels, and the most powerful right-hand man of the God of the Bible, Michael. Like Asashel, he had the highest position, 6 pairs of 12 wings, and was the superior of all the angels. He was also the angel with the highest position in the entire heavens. And in addition to the 3 supreme leaders of the 3 major forces, Syzax, Asashel, and Michael, there were several other people present. One was Gulifia, who was dressed as a maid and served beside Syzax. Another was Kana, who stood in the corner and entered as an observer, only bringing along Shinra and Juheim. And another was Wali, who also stood in the corner but was the closest to Asashel. He had been staring at Noah with a smile on his face that came from the bottom of his heart. The scene was silent. An extremely solemn atmosphere filled the entire conference room. Perhaps feeling nervous, Noah felt the corner of his clothes being tightly grabbed by Isha. Not only Isha, but even Genova and Irina had heavy expressions on their faces. They glanced in Michael's direction from time to time, and then turned their heads away. As believers who once believed in God, Aisha, Genova, and Irina felt very unnatural when facing the highest leader of the angels, the highest representative of heaven, and the right-hand man of the God of the Bible, right? However, Michael did not mind Aisha, Genova, and Irina's unnatural behavior. After giving the 3 girls a kind smile, he turned to Noah. I've wanted to meet you for a long time. You must be the legendary God Slayer, right? Let me introduce you, Syzax said to Noah. This is Noah Dole. He seems to be attending our meeting as an observer. He was the one who crushed Kokbor's ambitions during the previous attack. I've heard about this matter. Michael lowered his head towards Noah. Thank you again. You don't have to thank me. Noah took a deep look at Michael and smiled indifferently. As a reward, the Holy Sword of Destruction and Holy Sword of Mimicry belong to me. The other 3 holy swords taken by Kokbor, including the Holy Sword of Skyflash, have been returned to the church through Leah's hands. I remember I've said this before. In order to take back the stolen holy swords from Kokbor, the church sent Genova and Irina over in an attempt to take back the holy swords that had fallen into the hands of the fallen angels. After that, Genova and Irina were expelled from the church because they knew that God was dead. The Holy Sword of Destruction and Holy Sword of Mimicry were naturally still in the hands of these 2 girls. Therefore, using the excuse of crushing Kokbor's ambitions as an excuse, Noah gave Leah the Holy Sword of Skyflash that he obtained from Freed and the other 2 holy swords that Genova and Irina found after the incident, and asked Leah to convey Noah's thoughts. Therefore, the Holy Sword of Destruction and Holy Sword of Mimicry continued to stay in the hands of Genova and Irina, and did not cause the church to send people to take them back. As a human who did not belong to any faction, Noah had the right to make such a request. Even so, please allow me to express my gratitude to you. Michael's smile was still as peaceful as ever. It's all thanks to you that things didn't get to the worst point. No. Didn't we find a way to clean up the mess? Asashel said shamelessly. I've even sent the White Dragon Emperor out on my side. Asashel's words made the atmosphere in the meeting room drop to the freezing point once again. Doesn't this man know that the main purpose of today's 3-party meeting is to hold the fallen angels accountable? I've already said before that Kokbor's actions were entirely his own initiative, and he can't represent the fallen angels. Asashel spread his hands helplessly. Now we've already given Kokbor the punishment he deserves, so can we not continue talking about such meaningless matters? Meaningless matters? Sazix asked. Does the governor think that the fallen angels don't need to bear any responsibility for Kokbor's actions at all? Well, no matter what, it's our people who caused the mess. Naturally, I won't shirk all responsibility. Asashel waved his hand impatiently. If you're still worried, why don't we just conclude a peace treaty here? That one sentence made everyone present except Noah stand up in surprise. Noah did not find it strange at all because he already knew that Asashel had such a plan in advance. However, for the others, it was really surprising that the governor of the fallen angels, Asashel, who was simply the leader of the bad guys, would actually make such a suggestion. Besides, was it peace? From ancient times until now, the 3 forces had been in a constant war. Even now, when they were in a state of truce, small-scale conflicts were still going on. They had even fought until the gods and demon kings were all dead, and the 3 forces had fallen to the point where they could only rely on humans to reproduce. Now that peace was suddenly proposed, and it was even proposed by the bad guy leader of the fallen angels, who wouldn't be surprised. However, after the surprise, Sazix and Michael looked at each other and smiled. It's really surprising. Michael expressed his thoughts directly. Although His Highness Sazix and I originally planned to propose a peace treaty to the fallen angels, we didn't expect you to propose it first. However, if this situation continues, there's really no need for it, Sazix said with a sigh. The gods and demon kings are already dead, and our 3 forces have reached a point where we can no longer continue to suffer losses because of the war. In order to allow the race to continue, the war should not break out again. That's right. Asashel's expression became serious. If a war breaks out again, this time the 3 forces will definitely perish together. At this point, Asashel suddenly smiled and looked in Noah's direction. Therefore, I also invited the famous Godslayer to attend this meeting. The purpose is to let him witness the peace treaty between our 3 forces. If someone deliberately breaks the treaty in the future, then I hope that everyone will first consider whether they can deal with the crusade of the Godslayer. The whole place suddenly fell silent. Sazix and Michael both looked at Noah and then smiled bitterly at the same time. Since we have the Godslayer as a witness, then we can rest assured. At this moment, Varley suddenly spoke. Before that, can I ask the Godslayer over there a question? Hearing Varley's words, everyone turned to look in Noah's direction. Noah frowned. It was because Wally's eyes were filled with an unprecedented battle intent and excitement that couldn't be matched even in the past. Then Varley said this sentence. Noah Dole, you have become the new Red Dragon Emperor, right? This time everyone, including Sazix, Asashel and Michael, looked at Noah in surprise. Not to mention the others, even Noah himself was a little surprised. This Varley already knew that Noah had become the host of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? It seemed that the relationship between the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor was deeper than Noah imagined. Chapter 648. Now the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear had completely turned into pure power and was absorbed by Noah. That was to say, unlike other sacred gear holders, Noah did not have any sacred gear in his body. The Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was only one of the Dragon Emperor's abilities. When Noah used the power of the Dragon Emperor, it was only instantiated in the form of sacred gear. If Noah did not instantiate the sacred gear, then he would not be considered a sacred gear holder at all. No one would be able to discover the existence of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. From the beginning to the end, Noah only had the authority of the 10 incarnations. Whether it was the power of Welslana, Mecher or Drake, it was integrated into Noah's body. After being absorbed by Noah's overbearing physique, it was considered Noah's own power. Therefore, without using the authority of the 10 incarnations, coupled with the restriction ability that was previously integrated into the authority, and the additional concealment effect, no one would be able to detect Noah's power. However, Wally was aware of it. Undoubtedly, until yesterday, this matter was only known by Lyath and her family, wasn't it? Seeing Noah's somewhat surprised expression, Varley seemed to have gotten the answer, and his expression became more excited and happy. I'm also very surprised. As the White Dragon Emperor, I didn't notice the power of the Red Dragon Emperor, but the White Dragon in my body still felt the aura of the Red Dragon on you. That should be the aura left behind when you used the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, right? Hearing this, Noah once again lamented the deep relationship between the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor, and nodded without hiding anything. You're right. The Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear that was lodged in Hito Issei's body has been taken out by me. Now the power of the Red Dragon Emperor is mine. After being acknowledged by Noah, everyone present had their own reactions. Song turned his head and looked at Lyath. After getting a nod from Lyath, he finally believed this fact. Sazax and Michael looked at each other in dismay. Only Athasiel, who was obviously smiling bitterly. Campione and Longlness? Should I say this is a joke? Or should a person who can kill a god be equipped with a weapon that can kill a god? As an expert who specialized in the study of sacred gear, no one understood what it meant better than Athasiel. As a Red Dragon Emperor, as well as a god slayer? Varley laughed, and his laughter was unusually happy. Originally, because the ordinary human named Hito Issei was the Red Dragon Emperor, I was very disappointed. Now I'm very satisfied, extremely satisfied. As he said this, Varley stared at Noah with a burning gaze. You're probably the strongest Red Dragon Emperor in history, aren't you? Do you want to directly determine the winner of the fateful duel between the Red Dragon and the White Dragon? At the scene, Sazex, Michael, Lyath, and the others all frowned. Varley, Athasiel said directly. Undoubtedly, you didn't care about the fateful duel between the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor in the past, did you? Because for me, as long as it's a powerhouse, even if it's not the Red Dragon Emperor, it doesn't matter to me. I'll go and find a winner. Varley made a statement that only a typical battle maniac would say. So, if the Red Dragon Emperor is a powerhouse that makes my blood boil, then of course it makes me excited, right? Varley. Athasiel's voice began to become serious, and he looked directly at Varley. Look at the situation clearly. Do you think we'll let the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor duel here at this time? Is that so? You don't agree? Varley closed his eyes slightly, and then suddenly opened them. Then there's no other way. Let's end this meeting early. As soon as he finished speaking, the White Dragon Emperor's light wings, dividing, flashed behind Varley's back. Under the gaze of everyone present, the light wings behind Varley flapped, and he flew in the direction of the window. Bang! In the crisp sound, Varley directly crashed through the window of the meeting room and soared into the sky. Extremely dense mana burst out of his body as he came to a stop in mid-air. Balance breaker. A surge of light suddenly enveloped Varley's entire body. When the light dissipated, Varley's entire body was covered in thick, pure white full-body armor. Sazax, Michael, Lias, Song, and the others who finally reacted were all shocked. What is he trying to do? In the end, the ominous premonition still came true. Athaseel's face also darkened. He looked up and stared at Varley, who was hovering in midair, and said in a low voice, "Varley, what are you trying to do?" "Nothing, Athaseel." Varley's voice came from under the helmet. "Just a chaotic performance for all of you who are about to usher in peace." As soon as he said that, the mana that rose from Varley's body gathered into a huge magic circle in midair. And in the magic circle, people covered in black robes slowly appeared, and they filled the entire sky of the Colt King Academy. What's wrong? What happened? Intruders? The demons, angels, and fallen angels patrolling Chariot King Academy all flew over when they noticed the commotion. But before that, Wally made his move. Buzz! The rich mana turned into bright rays of light. With Varley as the center, they were like lasers that pierced through space and shot in all directions. Poochie 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 poochie. The sound of laser beams piercing through human bodies could be heard all around. It was the sound of the surrounding demons, angels, and fallen angels being pierced by the magic lasers. Ah! Screams resounded through the sky. Immediately afterward, the black-robed men that appeared from the magic formation all flew around and shot magic power beams at the demons, angels, and fallen angels whose formation had been broken by Wally's attack, catching the people of the three forces off guard. In an instant, the demons, angels, and fallen angels suffered heavy losses. With Sazax, Athasher, and Michael taking the lead, Liath, Canna, and their followers' faces changed abruptly. Noah, the only one who could remain calm, looked at Wally, who was hovering high in the air. He muttered to himself as he recalled what Athashel said in the cafeteria. Sure enough, Wally betrayed us. I'm sorry, Athasher. Wally's voice echoed in the air. What I want is to be able to fight without restraint with the strong. So, Calamity Mass is more suitable for me. Calamity Mass? They had never heard of such a noun, which made everyone frown. Athasher, on the other hand, curled his lips and smiled. Not long ago, our deputy governor of the fallen angels had his eyes on a suspicious group. They gathered the dangerous elements of the three major forces with the purpose of destruction and chaos. In short, a group of terrorists who are not used to world peace. That's Calamity Mass, right? As expected of you. You know everything like the back of your hand. You even discovered the existence of Calamity Mass. You have long expected that I would betray you, right? Wally opened his hand. Then, with your personality, you should have made some preparations in advance. What did you do in response to my betrayal? As soon as Wally finished speaking, another voice answered Wally's question. Let me answer this question for you. As soon as the voice fell, I used these words to provoke the gods in the sky. Exercise this magic power, chant this spell, and make everything in the world bow and kneel. A formless wave spread out along with the chanting of the spirit of words. Chapter 649. I will use these words to provoke the gods in the heavens. Exercise this magic power, chant this incantation, and make everything in the world bow and kneel. When the words that could provoke the gods in the heavens reverberated in the space, an invisible wave formed by magic power spread out like ripples, covering the entire Horse King Academy. At this moment, a trace of warning emerged in Wally's heart, forcing him to subconsciously burn the mana in his body and cover his entire body. Immediately after, a sound that heavily struck the hearts of everyone present shook. Come down. In an instant, the invisible fluctuations that spread out shrouded the black-robed men who were attacking the surrounding demons, angels, and fallen angels like tarantulas, including Wally. Wally only felt that his body suddenly became incomparably heavy, and he couldn't help but sink down fiercely. But fortunately, Wally mobilized the magic power in his body and filled it all over his body, allowing Wally to bear the heavy burden. His body suddenly shook, and the invisible wave that shrouded his body dissipated. However, the black-robed people didn't have the ability to do so. Bang 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 bang. In a series of muffled sounds, the black-robed people all seemed to be pulled down from midair, and one after another heavily smashed onto the ground, stirring up bursts of smoke and waves of screams. These black-robed people weren't demons, angels, or fallen angels but a group of mages. Even if they could use magic, mages were still humans in terms of their bodies. So after falling from such a high altitude, the group of mages were all lying on the ground wailing, and some even spat out blood wildly, unable to get up again. In other words, the only one who survived was Wally. Sure enough, there's no way to make the legendary White Dragon Emperor bow down just by relying on the words of the priest incarnation. Saying such a sentence, Noah had unknowingly walked out of the conference room and came to the first floor of the school building. He slowly walked out of the door and looked at Wally. Now, do you know what a Satchel has prepared for your betrayal? Hearing this, Wally, whose whole body was burning with magic, smiled. If that so-called preparation is for you to stop me, then I'm more than happy to do so. It's just that, compared to a Satchel, Wally, the terrorist group you joined doesn't seem to have a good brain. Noah said as he looked around at the mages lying on the ground, wailing in pain. These mages should all have the power to rival mid-level demons. But we have the Demon King, the Archangel, and the Governor of the Fallen Angels. Don't tell me that the so-called group of disasters thinks that as long as you and these mages are here, they can take down the leaders of the three forces? Even I don't think I can do it alone. Wally ignored all the other mages and raised his hand. Therefore, we have also prepared opponents for you. After saying that, the huge magic array in the air above Varley flashed with a dazzling light that was even more intense than before. There, three figures appeared and slowly descended from the sky, stopping beside Varley. That's... Seeing the three people, Syzax and Gulifia, who were still in the meeting room of the school dormitory, narrowed their eyes. Even Lyeth and Canna were shocked. Seeing this, Noah frowned. It seemed that these three people's origins were not ordinary. No, it was not just their origins. Noah also felt a very powerful aura from these three people. Almost all of them were not inferior to the highest level demons. Under such circumstances, a woman in a revealing outfit spoke up. Hey Wally, that's the rumored Godslayer, right? Oh. A man with a cold face looked at Noah. He's the Godslayer? He claims to be able to kill gods. The remaining man, who looked like a warrior, also spoke. Wally, you don't really believe it, do you? It's up to me to judge whether I should believe it or not. Wally's voice was flat, as if the people around him were just background characters. You just need to do what you want to do. Hearing this, the woman in revealing clothes smiled viciously. I am the real Demon King, the descendant of Leviathan Cadelia Leviathan. The man in the plush coat with a cold face spoke next. I am the real Demon King, the descendant of Beelzebub Karuba Beelzebub. Following closely behind, the warrior-like man also made a loud declaration. I am the real Demon King, the descendant of Asmodeus Cruzley Asmodeus. Finally, Wally's emotionless voice rang out. I am the real Demon King, the descendant of Lucifer Wally Lucifer. The four descendants of the old Demon King stood side by side in the air, their bodies burning with terrifying magical power. Come, it's time to bring chaos and destruction to this world. As soon as the words were spoken, Cadelia, Sharuba, and Cruzelii immediately crouched down and shot toward the school dormitory as they spoke in unison. Despicable fake Demon King. Accept the punishment of the real Demon King. Seeing the three descendants of the old Demon King charging toward them, Lias, Tsongna, and the others' faces tensed up. On the other hand, Syzax, Asashel, and Michael calmly reached out with their hands. In their hands, rich energy waves slowly took effect. A shining barrier covered the entire school dormitory. Cadelia, Karuba, and Cruzley's bodies burned with surging magical power as they crashed into it. Boom! A deafening sound and an indescribable tremor came from the school dormitory. However, Noah merely took a glance in that direction and stopped observing them. There was no other reason. Noah did not think that the descendants of the Demon King could do anything to the real Demon King, the leader of the angels, and the governor of the fallen angels. So, ignoring the commotion over there, Noah looked straight at the only one left, Wally. The descendants of the four old Demon Kings. The other three have gone to attack the leaders of the three forces. They should be thinking of seizing power, a coup, or even changing the world. Aren't you coming with them? Didn't I say so? Wally spat out. I'm only interested in fighting the strong. As Wally's last word fell, his figure disappeared like a ghost. Whoosh! Noah could clearly see a white meteor-like trajectory suddenly appear in the air. It swept through the air at an extremely fast speed and shot towards him. At that moment, Noah cancelled his priest form and used Dragon Emperor instead. All evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now I will have the majesty of 10 mountains, the power of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 dragons. The majestic me will raise the ferocious power of dragon-slaying dash. At this moment, terrifying magic power gushed out of Noah's body unreservedly, making him seem as if he was bathed in a wave of air, causing the surrounding space to emit a crackling sound. As a god-slayer, the instinct of fighting had been completely integrated into Noah's body. Therefore, there was no need for any preparation time. Facing Wally's head-on challenge, Noah's body automatically adjusted to the most perfect combat state, filling Noah's body with power. In an instant, the power that could rival a dragon flowed into Noah's body, and Noah's senses also instantly obtained a divine skill state that far exceeded the wild instinct and intuition. Noah clenched his right fist and shook his arm. Bringing about an unusually powerful force, he blasted it toward the space in front of him without any fancy moves. Whoosh! Just as Noah's right fist blasted into the space in front of him, as if it was calculated, a white trajectory cut through the sky and stopped there, revealing Wally's figure. Immediately, Wally also raised a hand covered in armor and slapped Noah's right fist as fast as lightning. Bang! A terrifying ripple of wind suddenly burst out, causing cracks to appear on the ground and setting off a powerful wind wave. Some of the gravel in the open space were directly shaken into powder. Chapter 650. Pung Dash. The powerful shockwave spread out from the open space in front of the Full King Academy, digging up the soil and stones on the ground, and mercilessly landing on the barrier that covered the entire Full King Academy. Peng peng pinch peng pen dash. Under the powerful shockwave, the barrier that separated the Full King Academy from the outside world trembled slightly, and then withstood the shocking shockwave, withstanding all the impact. The barrier that covered the Full King Academy was jointly opened by the demons, angels, and fallen angels. Therefore, this level of impact was still bearable. If it wasn't for this barrier, the environment around the Full King Academy would have been completely changed today. Humph! In the midst of the shockwave, Wally, who was covered in pure white armor, let out a muffled groan. The light wings on his back flapped, and his figure quickly retreated. Pung Dash! At the same time, the armor on Wally's right hand directly exploded, and the skin on it cracked open and blood seeped out. In the blink of an eye, Wally's hand was dyed red. Even Wally couldn't help but change his expression. He actually shattered the armor with one hit? Just when Varley was surprised by this, the diving dividing wings of the White Dragon Emperor began to flicker behind Varley, and a voice drilled into Varley's ears. Wally, be careful. The Red Dragon Emperor should have the Dragon Kill ability that can cause great damage to dragons. If you're not careful, you won't be able to avoid serious injuries. Wally's expression calmed down, and with a flash of light in his hand, he was once again covered in pure white armor. Then tried to use magic power to attack. Wally raised his hand, and a dense light appeared on his hand. It turned into a bolt of lightning, and violently shot towards Noah in front of him. However, before that, Noah relied on his senses that far surpassed his wild instincts and intuition, and as if he could predict the future, he tapped the tip of his foot and quickly retreated. Pung Dash! The magic power bolt landed where Noah was a second ago, and the ground there exploded. Wally's attack missed, but he still raised both his hands. Dense magic power surged in his palms, and turned into balls of lightning. With a flash of light, they constantly flew out, and flashed towards Noah from all directions. Facing the overwhelming magic power bolts, Noah narrowed his eyes, and his body tensed up. The magic power in his body instantly skyrocketed. A layer of resplendent crystal-like light screen that looked like scales flashed out from Noah's body. It was densely packed and overlapped with each other. In just a short moment, it had completely covered Noah's body. Boom, 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 boom. Numerous magic power bolts fiercely bombarded the air scales around Noah's body, and as if causing a chain explosion, the dense fire was like a whistling flood, diffusing from Noah's body and covering Noah in it. However, not long after, Noah, who seemed to be composed of gas, violently retreated from the fire, and was once again exposed to the air. You want to use long-range attacks? Without stopping his body, Noah allowed his body to violently retreat. He looked at Wally, who once again raised his hands in front of him, and the corner of his mouth raised. Although the Dragon Emperor incarnation doesn't have the ability to use long-range attacks, it doesn't mean that I don't have them. After saying that, in front of Noah, a gorgeous magic array rotated, and the outline surged with amazing magic power. With a vibration, it condensed into a huge beam of light, and violently shot out from the center of the magic array. It cut through the air, and rapidly shot towards Wally in the distance like lightning. Magic! Facing the huge beam of light, Wally stretched out his palm, and a flame-like magic power gushed out, causing a blue jade to flash on the armor on Wally's outstretched arm. The next moment, the huge beam of magic power directly fell on Wally's hand. However, before the beam of magic power took effect, the jade in Wally's hand flashed with light, and a voice sounded. Divide, eat! An invisible wave passed from Wally's palm to the huge beam of light, and the huge beam of magic power that fell on Wally's hand suddenly became sluggish. Its volume suddenly decreased by half, and even the magic power contained in it was reduced by half. Wally's White Dragon Emperor's light wings diving divide could reduce the power of the target it touched by half. It was not only effective on people but also on the attack itself. In addition, Wally was still in the balance breaker state, and could use the ability to reduce power by half at any time. As long as Wally was willing, he could use the ability to reduce power by half a dozen times in a short second, and weaken the beam of magic power to the point of self-collapse. Of course, the balance breaker state also had a time limit. In the balance breaker state, the more Wally used the ability to reduce power by half, the shorter the duration of the balance breaker state would be. However, Wally didn't need to worry about this problem at all. Every sacred gear had a balance breaker state. Every balance breaker also had a time limit. However, the stronger the user was, the higher the proficiency of the balance breaker state, and the longer the balance breaker state could be maintained. As a descendant of the Demon King, Wally's magic power was very powerful. Under such circumstances, Wally's balance breaker state could be maintained for a whole month. Even if the continuous use of the ability was reduced by half, the balance breaker state could still be maintained for at least a day, so there was no need to worry about this problem at all. Unfortunately, Wally's opponent was even worse. Boost! At the same time when Wally used the ability to reduce power by half, a voice sounded in the distance. Suddenly, the magic light beam that had been weakened by half suddenly expanded and recovered to its original power. Wally's expression changed, and he suddenly raised his head and looked at the opposite side. There, Noah also stretched out a hand and placed it on the magic circle that was emitting the magic light beam. On Noah's hand, a scarlet ferocious gauntlet appeared there, and the jade on the back of his hand was still flashing. Impressively, it was the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Boom! In the next moment, the magic light beam directly exploded, setting off a violent wave of fire that shook the surroundings, and also covered Wally's body in it. Looking at the expanding wave of fire, Noah's expression was as calm as ever. It's just a simple attack by processing magic power into a cannonball. Wally, if you pretend to be dead like this, then you're not qualified to be the descendant of one of the 4 demon kings. As soon as Noah's words fell, the spreading wave of fire trembled violently. Immediately, an extremely surging demonic energy slowly radiated from it. It was like a wave that wanted to destroy the sea of fire. It surged in all directions, emitting a surging roar in the surroundings. Of course, the battle has just begun, and I haven't enjoyed enough. As the magic power roared, a voice also spread in the sea of fire. The voice was full of joy and battle intent. Boom! When the voice full of joy and battle intent fell, the sea of fire that swept the space suddenly condensed, and with a loud bang it directly scattered in all directions. The waves of fire surged and spread out from the center of the self-study garden, bombarding the surrounding enchantment, causing it to become shaky. When the spreading waves of fire came in front of Noah, they were blocked by the light curtain-like air scales and separated to 2 sides. Noah, on the other hand, had already shifted his gaze to the spot where the wave of fire exploded. There, a figure full of magic power flames was suspended in the void, and appeared in front of Noah's eyes. When Wally reappeared, the pure white armor on his body was already covered by a thick layer of light curtain. Obviously, at the critical moment, Wally turned his magic power into a defensive nature, so that he could resist the impact of the magic light beam. Chapter 651. In the scorching sea of fire, Wally floated in the air by relying on the diving dividing wings of White Dragon Emperor behind him. He raised his head that was covered by a pure white dragon head helmet, and stared at the ferocious crimson-red gauntlet on Noah's hand. He let out a joyful laugh. Have you finally used the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? On the White Dragon Emperor's diving dividing wings behind Wally, a faint blue light flashed out, and a sound was heard. It's been a long time, Drake. At the same time as the deep voice sounded, an equally deep voice also came from Noah's boosted gear. It's indeed been a long time, Arubian. I knew you would still come to me. Because Noah used the boosted gear, Drake's consciousness in Noah's soul also awakened. It was because he felt Drake's consciousness awakening that the white dragon named Arubian made a sound. However, when he heard Drake's voice, Arubian suddenly fell silent for a moment. Then he said in surprise, "It feels like you're different from before, Drake. Is it my illusion?" "No, I've changed a lot." Drake's voice kept echoing from the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear Jade. "But you're the same. You actually chose the descendant of the Demon King as your host. It's really not funny. With his bloodline and talent, he should be able to easily surpass your previous hosts, right? Choosing a host is a function of the system. We can't choose a host ourselves. This time is really a coincidence. But I'm very surprised that I'm a descendant of the Demon King." Arubian's voice was still deep. "However, I thought that with Varley as my host I wouldn't lose to you this time. In the end, isn't your host more cheating than the descendant of the Demon King? Just like what you said, even I am surprised. However, my previous host was just an ordinary human. Who would have thought that he would suddenly become like this?" The crimson Baoyu on the gauntlet flashed in agreement with Drake's every word. "So, I'll tell you the truth, Arubian, let your host run away quickly. You can't win against my partner." Drake said this sentence quite matter-of-factly. Unlike when he first resided in Noah's soul, he didn't know much about Noah. Now Drake really understood how strong Noah was. Even his existence was so cheating. In addition, Noah hadn't used the rest of his clones yet. When he was in a bad situation, he could summon Drake and even Bio, who was not weaker than Drake. With Varley's current strength, it was impossible to win against Noah. Drake had such confidence. Hearing Drake's voice clearly, Arubian didn't have time to say anything, and Varley suddenly laughed out loud. "Whether I can't win or not, you'll know after seeing my full strength." Hearing this, Arubian was a little surprised. "Varley, are you going to use that?" Varley didn't answer Arubian's words. Instead, he shook the light wings on his back and raised one hand high above his head. Clank! At this moment, all the precious gems on Wally's armor shone with dazzling rainbow-colored radiance, bathing Wally in intense light. At the same time, the dragon power on Varley's body crazily increased. Seeing this, Noah, who had been silent all this while, gradually narrowed his eyes. Varley's aura, impressively, had far exceeded the level of the so-called Demon King, reaching the level of the God-Slayer that Noah knew. Under such circumstances, Varley chanted in a deep voice. "I awaken as," just as Varley chanted in a low voice, as if to cater. The gems on Varley's body didn't belong to Varley, and it was full of ominous voices. "Are you going to turn into ashes?" Has he turned into ashes? It was like a curse, filled with resentment and loathing. Varley didn't care. Under the echo of the voice full of resentment and hatred, he continued to chant an ominous spell. The second sky dragon deprived of everything. The dream is about to end. The illusion is about to begin. The body envies the infinite, the heart seeks dreams. All. That's right, give up everything you have. I, the overbearing white dragon, invite you to enter the limit of stainless. When the last spell fell, a large amount of strong light soared from Varley's body. Juggernaut drive. A violent aura burst out from Wally's body and swept in all directions, extinguishing the sea of fire and scraping away the soil. It was no longer the aura of Varley's magic power, but the aura of a dragon. In the aura, Varley's aura crazily expanded. When it stopped, the fluctuation of power had reached a point where Noah couldn't help but be serious. It was not weaker than the power of veteran god-slayers like Warban and Luo Hao. It's a bit troublesome, partner. Draeger's voice also began to become serious. That Varley can use Juggernaut Drive. You have to be careful. If you don't use your full strength, you will die. Noah didn't doubt the authenticity of Draeger's words at all. He looked forward and directly asked, "What's Juggernaut Drive?" "Only people like us who have magical creatures sealed in the sacred gear can use an ability that is even more powerful than the balance breaker," Drake said in a deep voice. "Once the Juggernaut Drive is used, the restrictions of the sacred gear can be removed, allowing the holder to have the power of the monster sealed inside the sacred gear before it died. In other words, Wally now has the power of a sky dragon at his peak, which is even more powerful than the gods and demon kings. Even if it's you, if you don't deal with it seriously, you will definitely die." Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but be speechless. A sky dragon at his peak could be ranked in the top 10 of this world. In the face of such power, it was no wonder that Noah felt that Varley had reached the strength of Warban and Luo Hao. There's actually such a level of power? That's not a power that can be used casually. It's very risky, Draeger said. In this state, the holder of the sacred gear is very likely to be unable to control his mind, causing him to go berserk and even have his life sucked away. It will only stop when the host dies. There's no doubt that it's a cursed power. Just as Draeger finished speaking, Varley's voice sounded. "That's under normal circumstances. I'm different." Saying such a sentence in front of them in the dazzling light, Varley's figure gradually appeared. His whole body was still covered in pure white armor, but his size had almost doubled. Moreover, that pure white armor had become a lot more ferocious, like a dragon, making people's hair stand on end. "Thanks to the bloodline of the Demon King, my magic power is very strong. By consuming a lot of magic power, I can freely use Juggernaut Drive for a short period of time. The time is only a few minutes, but it's enough. So let's begin." After saying that, the light wings on Varley's back flapped fiercely, and his body shot out like a ray of light, appearing above Noah's head. Behind him, the pair of light wings actually twisted in an instant, as if they had turned into sharp spears. With the violent energy of a fierce beast, they enveloped Noah's whole body like raindrops. Noah's gaze was slightly cold. The magic power in his body surged out, and the air scales were open to the maximum power. Ding 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 ding. Immediately, the sound of continuous collisions rang out from the air scales around Noah's body. Noah only felt that there were sharp spears attacking him from all directions. Once he lost the defense of the air scales, Noah would instantly become a hornet's nest. Chapter 652. Ding 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 ding. Crisp sounds like steel colliding with steel rang from all directions around Noah. Divide, eat. Then the Baoyu on Varley's body also made a sound, making the air scales around Noah's body suddenly dim, and its power was directly reduced by half. Boost pressurization. However, almost at the same time, the Baoyu on Noah's hand also made a sound, making the air scales around his body suddenly brighten and return to their original state. Facing Noah's impregnable defense, Varley, who knew that there was not much time left, and that he couldn't keep wasting time with Noah, suddenly changed the light wings behind him. The countless sharp spear-like attacks that covered Noah's body like raindrops condensed together like lightning. On the light wings, a vast amount of dragon power surged out like a flood. In the blink of an eye, the tip of the light wings flashed with a dazzling light, drawing an extremely tricky arc. Like a meteor, it fiercely pierced towards one of the air scales on Noah's body. Noah's senses that far exceeded his wild instinct and intuition allowed him to perceive the trajectory of the extremely tricky attack. At that moment, Noah's heart tightened, and he quickly raised the hand covered by the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, blocking in a direction as if he had foreseen it. Ding! The next moment, the sharp spear-like light wings and the scarlet-red ferocious gauntlets fiercely collided with each other, causing sparks to fly in all directions. Even this won't work? The attack was neutralized, and even Varley's eyes hidden under the dragon-like helmet flashed with a touch of surprise. Immediately, the sharp spear-like light wings that pierced the scarlet-red ferocious gauntlets suddenly spun at high speed like a top, bringing about a burst of wind-breaking sound. Then how about this? The sharp end of the high-speed rotation drilled into the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Immediately after, it twisted in a strange manner, and a terrifying force erupted from it. Clang! With a resounding sound, Noah's hand, which was covered by the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, was actually knocked away. A chance! Suddenly, Noah's figure suddenly rushed forward like a ferocious giant beast. He raised his hand, which could no longer be called a fist, but a claw. He waved it directly at Noah, bringing a fierce claw wind, and fiercely fell on Noah's chest. The ferocious dragon claw landed on the gorgeous air scale. Divide, eat! The halved ability of the White Dragon Emperor's diving splitting was activated. However, this time, Noah didn't have the chance to activate the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear ability. On every part of the armor on Wally's body, all the jade gems flickered. Divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat. Without the slightest pause, Wally launched the diving dividing wings of the White Dragon Emperor, more than 10 times in a short span of 1 second. Poochie! Wally's ferocious dragon claw directly tore apart the air scale around Noah's body. Seeing this, even Noah's expression changed. Almost under the control of his instinct, which far exceeded his wild nature and intuition, he raised the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear in front of him. Clang! The ferocious dragon claw suddenly fell heavily on the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, causing a crisp sound, and at the same time, it also aroused a powerful impact. Noah felt as if his arm had been hit hard by something heavy. A powerful force hit his body, causing him to involuntarily take a step back. Looking at the unyielding Wally who continued to pounce on him, Noah's eyes flashed with a touch of sharpness. Immediately, his feet fiercely stomped on the ground, and the violent magic in his body suddenly poured into the ground. Boom! In the muffled sound of an explosion, the whole ground suddenly burst open. Boom! A burst of terrifying magic, like magma erupting from a volcano, suddenly rushed out from the ground. Like a surging wave, it bombarded Wally's body. Boom! The powerful impact composed of pure magic directly sent Wally, who was pouncing on Noah like a violent dragon, flying backward. At this moment in front of Noah, a gorgeous magic array also rotated. Like a huge cannon muzzle, it was filled with oppressive magic, turning into a huge magic light beam. It rubbed against the air, causing a sharp sound of explosion, and fiercely fell on Wally who was flying backward. Boom 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 boom. Suddenly, along with the sound of explosions, a burst of dense flames also exploded from Wally's body, setting off an overwhelming wave of fire. Under the bombardment of one magic beam after another, Varley cut a sorry figure. After using the Juggernaut drive, the defense of Wally's armor was no less than Noah's air scale. Therefore, the pure magic light beam did not cause much damage to Wally. However, the magic light beam that fell on Wally's body had the dragon-slaying effect of Noah's Dragon Emperor incarnation. Varley couldn't ignore the fact that it contained a powerful destructive effect against dragon-type creatures. Therefore, an extremely obscure damage penetrated the armor and directly hit Wally's body. Wally groaned, gritted his teeth, and converted all the magic in his body into defensive properties, and fiercely rushed out of his body. Ha! With a loud roar, a surge of mana surged out of Wally's body and blasted into the surrounding airwaves, forcibly dispersing the incoming beams of mana and intense flames. TSK. Wally was speechless. Even the Juggernaut drive can't defeat him. Wally, the power of that Godslayer is definitely comparable to those guys in the top 10. Your previous evaluation of him was too low. Arubian also spoke. Now you have consumed more than half of your magic power. If you continue to be in a stalemate when your magic power is exhausted, your life will be in danger, and you will even lose your mind. There is not much time left. Wally naturally understood Arubian's meaning. Originally, Wally was using his powerful magic to replace the consumption of his life to perform the Juggernaut drive for a short period of time. Once Wally's magic power was exhausted, the side effects of the Juggernaut drive would definitely make Wally suffer. In that case, let's decide the outcome with one move. Wally made up his mind, soared into the sky, and arrived in the air above Chariot King Academy. On Wally's back, the faint blue light wings fully unfolded, shaking a wave of ripples. White Dragon Emperor's domain, half dimension. Waves of fluctuations reverberated from the fully unfolded light wings behind Wally, spreading in all directions. Buzz 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 buzz. Wherever the ripple-like fluctuations passed, the space actually trembled and began to distort. The white guy is going all out. On the ground, Drake's voice directly sounded in Noah's mind. Partner, that technique is capable of having the size of all targets within a certain range, including space itself. I reckon that it's that guy's final and strongest attack. So you've already won. Don't you want to consider using your other incarnations? No need, Drake. Now is the time to use that move. Looking at Wally in the air, Noah's eyes flickered. Drake, are you okay? If you're right, Drake said cheerfully. Come and try your balance breaker. Chapter 653. Every sacred gear had its own balance breaker. However, in order to reach the balance breaker state, the sacred gear owner's emotions and desires had to be strong enough to reverse the flow of the world. Otherwise, no matter how strong they were, they would not be able to reach the balance breaker state. Ever since he was young, Noah had been forcing himself to stay calm in order not to let the overly massive magic power go berserk. Although his emotions couldn't be said to be unaffected, they were so strong that they could reverse the flow of the world. That was something that had never happened until now. Then, how could Noah reach the balance breaker state? At this point, Noah had an idea. Since the condition to reach the balance breaker state was that one's emotions and desires had to be strong enough to reverse the flow of the world, then if he skipped the steps of emotions and desires and directly reversed the flow of the world for himself, would he be able to reach the balance breaker state? If this idea was known by others, they would definitely laugh their heads off. Let's not talk about whether it would work or not. Even if it did work, how would he reverse the flow of the world for himself? Could it be that the world should revolve for a single person? That was simply a joke. However, when it came to Noah, it was not a joke. Gaia and Alea had once said that the world would not refuse Noah's request. Thus, if Noah requested the world to reverse the flow of the world for him, it was completely possible. This way, Noah would most likely reach the balance breaker state. Now it was time to test this possibility. Noah raised the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear high above his head, his eyes shining with an unprecedented brilliance. Please turn once for my sake. Noah's voice was like an echo, reverberating in the sky above Chariot King Academy. It reverberated through the buildings, past the demons, angels and fallen angels. It reverberated through the barrier that covered Chariot King Academy, and even penetrated the barrier, reverberating between heaven and earth. Ding! At this moment, a strange bell-like sound that only Noah could hear entered his heart. Clank! At this moment in Noah's hand, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear glowed with a dazzling light. Then Dilek shouted, "Success!" Even without Drake's reminder, Noah could clearly feel it. Noah could feel a powerful force seeping out of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, directly affecting his own body. Without hesitation, Noah poured all the mana in his body into the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Balance breaker. In Noah's hand, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear disintegrated into pieces and covered Noah's body. At the same time, the air scales around Noah's body shook and merged into the pieces. In midair, Wally's heart tightened. What happened? This is troublesome, Wally, Arubian said in a deep voice. That man has reached the balance breaker level. Arubian's words directly made Wally's heart tremble. Balance breaker? Noah has reached the balance breaker level? Didn't Noah just become the Red Dragon Emperor not long ago? How did he reach the balance breaker level? Wally, Arubian murmured in a dreamy voice. Perhaps we still underestimated the God Slayer. As soon as Arubian finished speaking, Noah's posture on the ground was exposed to the air. Upon closer inspection, Noah still looked the same. There was no change in his body at all, and he was not equipped with armor like Wally. However, around Noah's body, there seemed to be a phantom dragon that directly overlapped on top and attached to Noah's body. The phantom dragon was like a gas, fluctuating around Noah's body like a set of dragon-shaped full-body armor. The armor was almost the same as the armor Wally was equipped with when he used the balance breaker. The only difference was that it was crimson. Wally was stunned. What is that? Not to mention Wally, even Noah raised his hand in surprise. He looked at the crimson armor on his hand that was like a layer of phantom and asked in confusion, "Is this the balance breaker of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear?" "Buddy, don't doubt it. That is indeed your balance breaker." Drake's voice also had a hint of surprise. However, your balance breaker seems to have fused with your gas scales, turning the original solid armor into a red gas-like armor. It should be called a gas armor, right? Gas armor. Feel it yourself and you'll know. Although there's no materialized armor, you've indeed used balance breaker, and your strength has increased explosively. Indeed, as Drake said, Noah could feel an explosive power surging in his body. Now you can use the ability to multiply and transfer at any time at any ratio, and because of the fusion of the gas scales, the hardness of the armor has increased sharply. Drake's surprise began to turn into excitement. Don't worry about the battle. I will help you keep an eye on your balance breaker state. Hearing this, Noah smirked, raised his head, and looked at Wally in the air. Then Wally tried taking my attack. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah raised his hand in the direction of the air. Wang! A huge magic array that was taller than a person suddenly expanded in front of Noah's palm. Inside, waves of terrifying magic began to flow. Then, on the scarlet gas-like armor around Noah's body, illusionary gems flickered. Boost, 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 boost. As the voices rang out, the magic array in front of Noah vibrated repeatedly. As the voices rang out, the magic array expanded abruptly, and the mana surging within it also became extremely terrifying. In the end, the incomparably huge magic array produced a thunder-like sound of ripples. Inside, the terrifying magic seemed to have turned into a huge beam of light like a meteor, piercing through the sky. Under the countless shocked gazes of the surrounding demons, angels and fallen angels, it burst toward Wally. Looking at the huge beam of light that burst toward him, Wally laughed, and he laughed excitedly. Then let me take a look. Along with Wally's loud laughter, the void around the huge beam of light seemed to have completely solidified at this moment. In the next second, the solidification between heaven and earth was suddenly broken, and the surrounding space also rapidly squirmed at this moment, vibrating circles of ripples that swept across the entire surrounding space. Wung 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 wung. As the circles of ripples swept across the space violently shook like a lake, and began to distort. Gotcha! Under the situation where half of its volume was exploited, the space itself had already directly cracked under the bone-chilling sound. Rubbing against the air, the huge beam of light that made heaven and earth tremble bombarded that side of the space. Boom! An earth-shattering noise resounded through the sky. Chapter 654. Rumble. Like meteorites colliding with each other in the universe, an earth-shattering sound reverberated. Rumble. The entire Chariot King Academy trembled slightly at this moment. Gotcha! On the ground, huge fissures spread out like a spider web. Bang! The sturdy buildings quickly collapsed under the loud sound waves. Boom! Ripples filled with the force of the collision rapidly spread out from the point of impact. Finally, they heavily bombarded the boundary around Chariot King Academy, causing it to tremble continuously. The members of the demon, angel and fallen angel factions that were maintaining the barrier all revealed looks of horror. The thunderous explosion shook the entire Horse King Academy's buildings. At this moment, in the center of the Horse King Academy, in a distorted space, like a churning volcanic crater, dense flames were constantly stirring up, turning into waves of fire that spread out in an arc. At this moment, the space of the Horse King Academy began to violently tremble, and huge cracks spread along the space itself, shattering like glass. It was a scene of the end of the world. In the Horse King Academy, countless people raised their heads and looked at the waves of fire rolling in the distorted space with shock. Even if they weren't in the middle of it, many people still felt that the air seemed to have become much hotter. In the waves of fire that distorted space, Varley raised his hand and firmly resisted a huge beam of light. His whole body seemed to be on fire, crazily burning with magical power. Clearly, the White Dragon Emperor's domain half-dimension from before wasn't able to completely block Noah's attack that had multiplied by who knows how many times. Although the terrifying beam of light was directly weakened by half by the White Dragon Emperor's domain half-dimension, and was weakened by more than 80% in the distorted space, the remaining power still allowed the beam of light to fall on Varley's body. Fortunately, at this point, Varley wasn't unable to block it. Divide eat, divide eat, divide eat, divide eat, divide eat, divide eat, divide eat. The jade armor on his body continuously rang out, causing waves of fluctuations to linger around Varley's body, acting on the beam of light. Buzz. Under the effect of the powerful having ability, the beam of light that had multiplied by who knows how many times finally began to dim, and its volume became smaller and smaller. Divide, eat. When the last sound rang out, the beam of magic power that had struck Varley finally weakened to the size of an arm, and slowly dissipated. Bang! At the same time, the armor on Varley's hands were completely shattered, exposing his hands. A pair of hands that were dripping with blood, and even the skin had completely festered. Ha! Varley was gasping for breath, and the mana in his body was getting weaker and weaker. It had already weakened to the point where it couldn't be seen. Enough! Varley! Arubian's voice sounded anxiously, which was rare. Remove the Juggernaut drive state. Otherwise, it will deprive you of your life and make you lose your mind. Hearing this, Varley's heart was filled with unwillingness. That was because on the ground below, Noah, who was covered in overlapping phantoms like a crimson dragon, was still unscathed. The magic power on his body did not show any signs of weakening at all. It was still as vast and powerful as before. If it weren't for the fact that he would lose his mind if he continued to maintain the Juggernaut drive state, Varley definitely wouldn't mind continuing to fight if it was only depriving his life. Varley didn't want to live for long at all. As long as he could fight with the strong, it didn't matter if his life was reduced by thousands or tens of thousands of years. Anyway, the lifespan of a demon was ridiculously long, and Varley didn't care about reducing his lifespan by thousands or tens of thousands of years. But if he lost his mind, that was another matter. After all, Varley wanted to enjoy the process of fighting. If he lost his mind, he wouldn't be enjoying the process of fighting at all, but would be obsessed with the result of the battle. Varley had no choice but to remove the Juggernaut drive state. Bang! The armor all over his body shattered, revealing Varley's original figure. After landing on the ground, Varley only felt a burst of weakness in his body. He couldn't help but kneel on one knee, clutching his chest. His face was pale, but his eyes were still staring ahead. There, Noah maintained a red gaseous dragon-shaped armor and met Varley's gaze. It's a pity. If you could continue to use the Juggernaut drive, you might be able to continue fighting with me. But now your magic power is almost exhausted, and your physical strength is almost gone. You can't even use the balance breaker. It's impossible for you to be my opponent. Varley was speechless. After fully understanding Noah's true strength, Varley knew that it was impossible for him to defeat Noah. Even after using the Juggernaut drive, he couldn't do anything to Noah, let alone now when he couldn't even use the balance breaker. After using the Juggernaut drive, Varley's strength could already be ranked in the top 10 in the world. But after all, it was only for a few minutes. He couldn't really fight with those guys who could be ranked in the top 10. At most, he could only deal with those guys for a few minutes. Noah, on the other hand, undoubtedly had the qualifications to be ranked in the top 10. Just like what Arubian said. Varley previously underestimated Noah's strength. Bang! At this time, a loud noise came from the direction of the school building. Ah! In a chorus of screams, several figures flew out from the explosion of the school building. Like a kite with a broken string, they were scorched black and smoke rose from their bodies. They fell one after another around Varley. Seeing this, Varley's face changed. But Noah raised his eyebrows and smiled. It seems that the so-called descendants of the old Demon King are nothing more than this. The figures that fell around Varley were Cadilia, Karuba, and Chryseli, who had previously made a high-profile appearance. As the descendants of the three demon kings, Leviathan, Beelzebub, and Asmodeus, these three demons were now gasping for breath and were on the verge of death. And in the distance, Syzax, Asashel, and Michael flew over with Lise, Canna, and a group of followers and landed on the side. Teacher. Lise and the other girls looked at the crimson dragon-shaped aura armor on Noah and were all surprised. Even Syzax and Michael seemed to be a little surprised, let alone Lise and the others. Asashel looked directly at Varley and sighed after a long time. You lost, Varley. It seems so. Varley forced himself to stand up, his eyes still staring at Noah with a burning gaze. As expected of the Godslayer. It's great that such a person can become my rival. Hearing this, Asashel's sigh became even more obvious. Are you not going to surrender? I admit that I lost this time, but it's too early to surrender. I still have more powerful enemies to challenge. Varley glanced at a satchel and then looked straight at Noah. I'll say the same thing again. I'll be back. After saying so, a magic array appeared beneath Vale's body, enveloping him. He then teleported away, disappearing without a trace. From the beginning to the end, a satchel did not stop him and just looked at him in a daze. Is this okay? Noah said faintly. The next time we meet, we'll be enemies again. It's okay. A satchel pretended to be calm and looked at Noah with a smile. Aren't you still here? Noah immediately rolled his eyes, and the crimson dragon-shaped aura armor on his body slowly disappeared. One by one, demons, angels, and fallen angels began to fly over. Presumably, the next period of time would be used to clean up the mess. Chapter 655. Early in the morning, Chariot King Academy's old schoolhouse. In the open space in front of the old schoolhouse, Noah's eyes were tightly closed. Crimson gas was constantly rolling around his body, sometimes condensing into the shape of scales, sometimes condensing into the shape of an armor, and sometimes condensing into the shape of a dragon. After an unknown amount of time, the crimson gas fluctuating around Noah's body formed into a layer of dragon-shaped armor. It was as if a dragon's phantom directly overlapped on Noah's body. The aura on his body gradually carried a trace of the unique fierceness and ruthlessness of a dragon, which was very oppressive. If one looked carefully, they would notice. Compared to the last time when he fought with Varley, the crimson dragon-shaped armor on Noah's body not only became more solid, the scales on the armor were also quite clear. Even the eyes on the dragon-shaped armor's head were shining, as if there was a real dragon overlapping on Noah's body. It was very realistic. Phew! Then, Noah let out a sigh of relief and opened his eyes. It seems that the most stable state of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gears balance breaker can only stop here. Compared to when you first used balance breaker, it is indeed a lot more stable. In terms of proficiency, you have already reached the peak. Drake's voice sounded in Noah's mind. In your current state, the duration of your balance breaker can be counted in years. Even if you continuously use it, you can still maintain it for at least 3 months. Really, this is the first time I've seen a host who can use balance breaker to such an extent. You really are an abnormal guy. As a legitimate descendant of the Demon King, Varley relied on the Demon King's bloodline to be so amazing. He was even able to use the curse-like Juggernaut Drive for a short period of time. One could imagine his ability. However, even so, Varley could only maintain balance breaker for a month. If he continuously used it, the duration would be shortened to about a day. This was already very terrifying. Unfortunately, Noah broke the rules even more than Wally. Although he didn't have the Demon King's bloodline, Noah was the type with unlimited potential. His innate magic power was so great that even Tony could be compared to the Godslayer. After becoming a Godslayer, Noah's magic power was indescribably vast. As a descendant of the Demon King, Wally's magic power was immeasurable. It could even be used as a temporary consumption of his life to use the Juggernaut Drive. But even so, Wally's magic power was still inferior to that of the Godslayer. Before Noah had become a Godslayer, his magic power was already comparable to a Godslayer's. After becoming a Godslayer, his magic power was at a foul level among the Godslayers. Compared to Wally, he was much stronger. In addition, the Godslayer could grow in battle, but Noah could grow even if he didn't fight. With such innate conditions coupled with infinite potential and comprehension, even Wally could maintain balance breaker for a month, not to mention Noah. As Drager said, Noah was an abnormal guy. Even so, Noah wanted to become even more abnormal. Hey Drager. Noah asked with some expectation. I can also use Juggernaut Drive, right? Noah couldn't forget the strength of Wally when he used Juggernaut Drive. Originally, Wally couldn't be compared to Noah, and Noah didn't think that Wally could compete with him at first. As a result, after using Juggernaut Drive, Wally was able to make Noah take him seriously. If it weren't for the fact that Wally's Juggernaut Drive couldn't be used for too long, only for a few minutes, then Noah wouldn't have been able to win so easily. After using Juggernaut Drive, Wally was no weaker than the Godslayers like Orban and Luo Hao. In this way, if Noah could also use Juggernaut Drive, it would be a real foul. After all, Noah's physique was immune to all side effects. Once he could use Juggernaut Drive, it would be a complete representation of this power. Unfortunately, you won't be able to use the Juggernaut Drive. When Noah was full of expectations, Draeger poured a basin of cold water on him. The so-called juggernaut refers to the ability of the sacred gear that has a sealed monster. The sacred gear of the two heavenly dragons is called the juggernaut drive, because there is a sealed dragon. Now I have been separated from the sacred gear, and have been absorbed by your soul. Your sacred gear no longer has a sealed dragon in it, so how can you use juggernaut drive? Noah was suddenly speechless. Noah really didn't think that the result would be like this. If you want to say it, I am your juggernaut drive. If you want to use juggernaut drive, then just summon me. Draeger said indifferently. Also, juggernaut drive is not a good thing. It is the power of a curse. If you can stop this power, to be honest, I am relieved. At this point, Draeger changed the topic. You're already strong enough. Even if you can't use the juggernaut drive, your body's strength isn't any weaker than the juggernaut drive. You're definitely one of the top existences in this world. You should be satisfied. Hearing Draeger's words, Noah couldn't help but ponder. Now Noah finally knew how strong he was in this world. Heavenly dragons like Draeger and Arubian could be ranked in the top 10. Existences like Noah, Warban, and Luohao, who were quite foul in the Godslayer, could also be ranked in the top 10 in this world. Even if he didn't take into account a trump card like the warrior avatar, the beast horde avatar that could summon Bio and Draeger, and the elf avatar that had no combat power, there weren't many in this world who could do anything to Noah if he only used the other 7 avatars. But should he really be satisfied? One had to know that the person ranked first had limitless power, not to mention others. Noah didn't dare to say that he could compare to that person. If that was the case, could he really be satisfied? No, I still have more possibilities that I haven't unearthed. Noah's eyes flashed. If I can use my 10 avatars further, my strength will greatly increase. That's right. Further use. Noah had already used the power of the 10 avatars to the extreme and unearthed all the possibilities. The next step was to persevere and strengthen it. However, that was only for the use of one avatar. If Noah could use 2 avatars at the same time, what would it be like? If it was possible, what would happen if he used 3, 4, 5, or even the final 10 avatars at the same time? Noah had this idea for a long time. Now, it was time for him to make further use of his authority. It wasn't familiarity, control, or unearthing, but a further sublimation. I haven't reached my limit yet. I still have more room for improvement. Noah clenched his fists, his eyes abnormally bright. After canceling the use of the Dragon Emperor, Noah walked towards the old school building. Chapter 656. In the Paranormal Research Department, Leia stared at Noah in astonishment, losing her composure. You want to challenge my brother? It was not just Leah. Even Junai, Kitten, Aisha, Genova, Irina, Label, Kiba Yuto, and the others were stunned on the spot. Era. Junai, who had always been at a loss. What's going on? Sensei. Aisha panicked. Is there some misunderstanding between you and Lord Syzax? No, you're thinking too much. Noah smiled bitterly and shook his head. I just want to challenge Syzax, that's all. Challenge the Demon King. Genova stared blankly at Noah. But you're both the Godslayer and the Crimson Dragon Emperor. The previous few battles have already proven that you're no weaker than any god or demon king. Why do you still want to challenge the Demon King? It's just as Aisha said. Is there some misunderstanding? Irina raised her hand meekly. Actually, we can all sit down and talk. Don't be rash. Lord Noah. Even Lei Bei was flustered. She no longer cared about her usual haughtiness and blurted out incoherently. If you hurt Lord Syzax, the demons will be furious. Kitten did not say anything in particular. She just stared at Noah with a puzzled gaze, as if trying to read something from Noah's expression. She was quite serious. One could only imagine how shocking Noah's words were. Challenging Syzax. That was indeed quite shocking. Undoubtedly, Noah and Syzax did not have any conflict. Why would he suddenly want to challenge Syzax? I'm sorry, Sensei. I don't know what you're planning, but could you please give up on that idea? Leah's brow was already tightly furrowed. Big Brother is the Demon King. He has already put in a lot of effort to maintain the order of the underworld. Furthermore, the 3 great forces are currently in the process of concluding a peace treaty. There are many things that need to be done. If possible, I hope that teacher will not propose any challenges at this time. Leah was hinting at Noah not to add to the mess. However, Noah did not change his mind so easily. That's fine. I just want to trouble you to pass the challenge letter. As for the time of the challenge, it's fine if we wait until Syzax is free. Noah made a direct declaration. All in all, I will definitely fight Syzax. Just pass on the message for me. With that, Noah turned around, intending to leave without waiting for Leah's answer. Wait. And seeing that Noah didn't seem to be joking at all, Lias panicked all of a sudden. Without caring about anything else, she hurried forward and grabbed Noah's hand. Shouldn't you at least tell me why you want to challenge my brother? I remember that you get along quite well with him, don't you? It seemed that even Leah thought that Noah was challenging Syzax because he had some conflict with the Demon King. At that moment, Noah could only shake his head helplessly. So don't worry. I don't have any conflict with Syzax. I just need an opponent. Opponent? Everyone present, including Leah, was stunned. Yes, an opponent. Noah narrowed his eyes and smiled suddenly. An evenly matched opponent. That was the reason why Noah challenged Syzax. As early as the first time he saw Syzax, Noah had sensed that Syzax had an aura that was not inferior to that of an ordinary deicide, and could even catch up with ancient deicides like Warban and Luo Hao. At that time, Noah did not understand the extent of power in this world, and thought that the Demon Kings were about this level of strength. But now, after a period of understanding and Drake's explanation, Noah already knew that ordinary gods and demon kings could not reach this level of strength at all. Other things aside, as the leader of the fallen angels, Syzax definitely had the strength of a demon king or above. However, Noah felt that Syzax's strength was not at the level of deicides like Warban and Luo Hao. Syzax, on the other hand, could reach the level of an ancient deicides like Warban and Luo Hao, which proved that Syzax's strength could also be ranked in the top 10 in this world. In this way, Noah had a reason to challenge Syzax. It had been said before that ordinary training could not make a deicide stronger. A deicides could only become stronger in battle. Although Noah would enter a state of self-enhancement when he was not using it because of the past limited ability of the fusion of authority, that was at most an increase in the strength of authority itself. If Noah wanted to reach a new level of use of authority, he could only comprehend it through battle. In that case, it would definitely be more effective than Noah's rigid fumbling alone. This was a deicides. In order to reach a further use of the authority of the 10 incarnations, Noah only needed to fight. Therefore, Noah needed an opponent of the same level. An opponent who could be ranked in the top 10 of this world, who belonged to the world's top powerhouses. Among the existences that Noah knew, only Syzax could meet such an opponent. Therefore, Noah could only challenge Syzax. I know that it will be difficult for you to make such a sudden request, but I don't want to do anything. Just tell Syzax that I can do it at any time. Noah sighed. If you can agree to my request, I'll be very happy. Seeing that Noah did not seem to be faking it, Riaz and the others looked at each other. At that moment, a frivolous voice echoed throughout the supernatural research department. That sounds interesting. Let me give you a hand. As those words were spoken, a figure appeared on the luxurious desk of the Supernatural Research Department, accompanied by the light of a teleportation circle. He sat on top of it and imprinted himself into everyone's eyes. Athasiel? Everyone was astonished. The one who had come was none other than Asashel. You want to challenge Syzax, don't you? Athasiel said to Noah with a standard malicious smile on his face. I can help you contact Syzax. Hearing that, Riaz put on a straight face. What do you want? Not only Riaz, but even the group of kin stared at Athasiel with extreme vigilance. The man in front of them was no ordinary fallen angel, but the leader of the fallen angels. Simply put, he was the leader of the bad guys. Who would not be on guard? Don't be so nervous. There's no harm in it anyway, is there? Athasiel himself was extremely nonchalant. You need to go to the underworld during summer vacation, right? By then, Syzax will probably have some free time, right? Then a fight shouldn't be a problem, right? Noah's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Riaz. Are you going back to the underworld during summer vacation? Usually, I will go back to the underworld during summer vacation. Riaz glared at Athasiel, but still answered truthfully. And this time, There's a gathering of the new generation of demons during summer vacation. Including me and Kana, several young superior pure-blooded demons who are about to debut into adulthood will be attending. So, I plan to take my servants to the underworld during summer vacation. Also, the signing of the peace treaty between the three major factions is almost done. Michael and I will also be going to the underworld. Athasiel spread his hands. So, when the time comes, I will be going with you. All of a sudden, Riaz and the other girls showed signs of reluctance. It seemed that these girls did not have any feelings of closeness to Athasiel. Summer vacation, huh? Noah murmured, and then the corner of his mouth curled up. I hope I can achieve the goal of training. Training? Riaz was a little incredulous. You challenged my brother just to train? It's not strange that you need to train, right? Athasiel interrupted. Why don't you let me arrange training for all of you during your time in the underworld? Why? Riaz and the others all objected. In response, Athasiel only smiled. Don't worry, I'll train all of you well. Everyone's face turned bitter. Chapter 657. In the following period of time, Noah did not continue to explore the authority aspect. Instead, he obediently waited for the arrival of the summer vacation. It was not that Noah suddenly became less diligent. Instead, after that, Noah also tried to use the state of two avatars at the same time. In the end, it almost put Noah in a sorry state. Originally, Noah's 10 avatars belonged to the authority level of cheating. Each avatar could almost be used as an individual authority. Whether it was practicality or practicality, including the power itself, it was no different from an ordinary authority. Under such circumstances, although Noah's 10 avatars could only be regarded as one authority, no matter how one looked at it, they could be regarded as 10 authorities. As such, when Noah used two avatars that were comparable to authority at the same time, the burden was so heavy that Noah found it hard to believe. First of all, because of the use of two avatars at the same time, the magic power in Noah's body was being consumed at an incredible rate. It even caused the already extremely large amount of magic power to boil, making Noah's magic power almost go berserk-like when he was a child. That was because Noah did not have complete control of the power of two avatars at the same time. Secondly, using two avatars at the same time put a huge burden on Noah's body. Noah's whole body creaked as if it was about to collapse. It also made Noah's head feel like it was about to explode. Heat and pain all rushed up in one breath. These phenomena were all due to the burden of using the power of two avatars at the same time. Therefore, even Noah did not dare to use them casually. He could only wait obediently for the summer vacation to come. As a godslayer, as long as there was a battle, there would be growth. Noah could only focus on the battle with Syzax, allowing his body to adapt to the use of two avatars as it grew. He also figured out the best way to use the two avatars during the battle, so that the massive power would not run amok in his body and cause an unimaginable burden. On the other hand, Asashel seemed to have mentioned Noah's request to Syzax, who agreed to it. According to Syzax, Noah, the Godslayer, played a very important role as a witness and deterrent for the three major forces to trust each other and conclude a peace treaty. In addition, during the meeting between the three forces, he had directly faced the attack on the three forces, helped them defeat the strong enemy, and captured the descendants of the three former demon kings Leviathan, Beelzebub, and Asmodeus. Syzax felt that he had to agree to such a request. Hence, Noah's battle against Syzax during the summer break was basically set in stone. As long as the summer break came, Noah would be able to start training and improve himself to the next level. Therefore, Noah was now basically living the life of an ordinary teacher. He stayed in the infirmary and worked hard every day. From time to time, he would go to the supernatural research department to show his face. It was worth mentioning that Asashel had also become a teacher at the Cult King Academy and a consultant for the supernatural research department. Syzax's sister has a relative that I'm interested in. Plus, you, the Godslayer, and the Red Dragon Emperor are also here. It would be a waste if I don't observe closely. That was what Asashel said himself. However, Noah felt that Asashel had another reason for doing so. I heard that one of my subordinates seemed to have wanted to make a move on the child named Aisha. Really, they kept causing trouble for me. I have no choice but to think of a way to make up for it. This was another way of saying by Asashel. Noah did not have any objections to this. However, it was said that under Asashal's request, Liaz and her family had to train in the underworld during the summer break, including Aisha. Boo-hoo! On the way home, Aisha said a little uneasily, "Will I really be okay? It's just training for a while. Don't worry." Noah patted Aisha's head. "Besides, Aisha is not a combatant. She's a support type. Your training won't be too dangerous." "But I'm also a pawn," Aisha said with tears in her eyes. Sister Leah said that the role of a pawn is to charge into the enemy's main camp. Only then can you gain the right to be promoted and be a pawn. It was also said before that a pawn had the ability to upgrade to any pawn other than the king in the enemy's camp when they obtained the permission of the king. They could obtain the ability of that pawn and change it at will. This included the queen. It was also because of this that, generally speaking, pawns were better at charging into enemy lines and fighting head-on. Very few pawns were focused on healing. For Aisha, this must be something that she was very concerned about, right? However, Noah had a different opinion. Who said that pawn can't focus on healing as a support? Members who focus on healing need the ability to protect themselves the most. As long as they can protect themselves, even if their teammates fall, they can still heal them and let them return to the battlefield. If they are defeated, it will be a real loss, Noah said. And pawns can be upgraded. As long as they can be upgraded to a rook, not to mention attack power, the enhanced defense will increase your survivability. If you are upgraded to a knight, you will also gain a speed bonus. If you are targeted by the enemy, you can immediately run away. If you are upgraded to a bishop, you will be able to increase your magic power and increase the effectiveness of your healing. Not to mention, if you are upgraded to a queen, you will gain all the special abilities. You have 4 pawns in your body. Those powers will definitely increase your strength. Noah patted Aisha's shoulder. So don't think too much. It's just a different direction of development. It's definitely not that you are not suitable to be a pawn, understand? Hearing Noah's words, Aisha suddenly became a lot more spirited. Understood, teacher. I will work hard. Noah nodded with satisfaction. This time Noah also noticed. Kitten, who was standing at the side, had been maintaining her silence. She lowered her head and walked silently. Kitten was indeed a synonym for silence. However, Kitten was usually not silent to the extent that she almost did not say a word. This made Noah feel a little strange. He could not help but ask, "What's wrong, Kitten?" However, Kitten did not seem to hear Noah's voice at all. She still lowered her head silently and continued to walk forward. Noah, who felt more and more that something was wrong, patted Kitten's shoulder. "Why aren't you saying anything, Kitten?" "Ah." Kitten seemed to have been startled awake and came back to her senses. "What's wrong?" Noah frowned. Did Kitten not hear Noah's words all this time? "Kitty-chan," Aisha also said with a little worry. "Are you feeling unwell?" "No, it's not." Kitten shook her head, but did not explain anything. She quickened her pace and walked forward. "Kitty-chan, wait for me." Aisha quickly chased after her. Seeing this, Noah fell into deep thought. Something was wrong with Kitten's appearance. Nighttime, after the lights went out, Aisha and Kitten were already asleep under the blanket. Speaking of which, in the beginning, Kitten moved in here to keep an eye on Noah. Later on, she continued to stay here to keep an eye on Aisha. Now, it was basically certain that Noah would not harm Liath. Since Aisha had become Liath's dependent, she should not do anything. Kitten should have left after accomplishing her mission. However, since Aisha did not want to leave, Kitten stayed with her. Lying on the bed that covered the floor, just as Noah felt a little sleepy, a petite body crawled into Noah's arms. Noah was immediately awakened. The sleepiness in his head was gone. He lowered his head, looked at his arms, and was stunned. Kitten. The one who crawled into Noah's bed was Kitten. At this moment, Kitten was looking at Noah with teary eyes, and said something that made Noah's brain go blank. "Teacher, please take me." Chapter 658. Teacher, please possess me. In the dead of the night, a lowly student who looked to be only 13 or 14 years old, but was as cute as a doll, burrowed into his arms. She even looked at him with moist eyes and said something that made him think of Pian Pian. What kind of reaction should he have? Noah didn't know how others would react. As for Noah himself, he had already widened his eyes to the maximum. He looked at the kitten in his arms with astonishment in his eyes. It was not as if Noah had not experienced a similar scene before. Almost every day, Genova would bring Irina to secretly find an opportunity to kidnap Noah to a place where there was no one. Sometimes they would even bring Isha, which almost made Noah collapse. So now Noah was almost not surprised by such things. But that was only limited to Genova, Irina, and Isha. Now the one who crawled into Noah's arms and said something like that to Noah was none other than the kitten. The kitten who always had a disgusted attitude towards sex. And when Noah took advantage of Noah, the kitten would not hesitate to throw an iron fist at him. How could Noah not be surprised when the kitten suddenly crawled into Noah's arms like that? But the kitten didn't seem to be joking. Meow. Just like a real cat, the kitten in pajamas had an intoxicating blush on her cheeks that could be clearly seen even in the night, and she let out a cute meow. She gave off a charming feeling. Then the kitten approached Noah in a daze. She sat up from Noah's arms and began to unbutton her pajamas. She didn't give Noah any time to react. When the kitten unbuttoned her pajamas, she threw it away. When he threw it away, an extremely petite, yet abnormally soft and fair body entered Noah's eyes. Only then did Noah realize that the kitten was not only not wearing any underwear, but her lower body was also completely naked. Even if it was said that once the kitten undid the pajamas on the upper half of her body, her entire delicate body would be completely naked. In this state, the kitten's breathing was rapid and her face was flushed. She bent down and hugged Noah tightly. The next moment, a soft body that was completely soaked in sweat pressed against Noah's body. Immediately, the kitten began to take off Noah's clothes. Wait, kitten. Seeing that the kitten didn't seem to be joking, Noah quickly grabbed the kitten's hand. What's wrong with you? You've been acting weird since today. Teacher. The kitten raised her head, her beautiful big eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, I can't control myself. Saying this, the kitten directly grabbed Noah's hand and pressed it on her small breasts. Although it was very small, but that soft touch did pass through the palm to Noah's nerves. Meow. The kitten made a sweet sound that was very comfortable. Noah's hand was almost frozen on the kitten's body, and even his expression was completely frozen. What happened? What exactly happened? What the hell was this situation? What happened to the kitten? When Noah was puzzled by this, the kitten had already bent down again. With an extremely seductive expression, she actually licked Noah's neck. Oh, teacher's taste. Clearly feeling the unique touch of the kitten's tongue, Noah's whole body quivered. You know, even Mira and Lisanna didn't lick Noah's body like this. Now a loli was tempting Noah like this. How could Noah bear it? Moreover, the kitten's tongue that was licking Noah's neck was constantly moving. Moving to Noah's cheek, then moving to the tip of his nose, and finally, even moving in the direction of Noah's mouth, and constantly licking the corner of Noah's mouth. Feeling that something was wrong, Noah immediately broke away from the kitten's hand, put his hand on the kitten's extremely slender shoulder, and pushed the kitten away. Kitten, what's wrong with you? Oh. The kitten just looked at Noah with an intoxicated expression and eyes. She didn't say anything and continued to stick out her small tongue, as if absent-mindedly licking Noah's arm that was on her shoulder. Finally, Noah found that something was wrong with the kitten. First of all, the kitten's body was very hot, very hot. Her whole body was emitting a surprising amount of heat, making her face that red. Secondly, there was a trace of shadow in the kitten's eyes. Her eyes that were full of water kept shaking, but there was no focus at all. That was simply a sign that she had lost her mind. This behavior directly calmed Noah down. Then, a scene that surprised Noah appeared in front of Noah's eyes. Meow. Only to see in the kitten's coquettish voice, a pair of white cat ears appeared from the kitten's head, constantly twitching. Immediately on the kitten's petite buttocks, a small white tail suddenly stretched out and wrapped around one of Noah's arms, wriggling non-stop, giving Noah a ticklish feeling. At the same time, Noah's extraordinary sensing ability also felt an abnormal fluctuation of power from the kitten's body in this posture. That was neither magic nor light power. A completely new kind of power that Noah had never encountered before. That power was like the aura flowing in nature. It was very pure and pure. The kitten was actually hiding such power? Moreover, what's with this posture? Just as Noah was surprised, the kitten's hand reached towards his lower body. This time Noah finally could not stay calm. "Sorry, kitten, you should sleep first." Noah suddenly reached out a hand and pressed it behind the kitten's neck. A faint trace of magic hit it, causing the kitten's pupils to dilate, her head to tilt, and she fell directly into Noah's arms, unable to get up again. Noah then heaved a huge sigh of relief. He got up, and after feeling the temperature of the kitten in his arms gradually drop, he murmured, "Why did the kitten suddenly undergo such a change?" Moreover, it was very obvious that the kitten did not do it by herself, but because she had lost her mind. At that moment, Noah grabbed the blanket and covered the naked body of the kitten lying in his arms. Then he closed his eyes. "Draeger, wake up. I have something to ask you." Usually Bio and Draeger, who were purely residing in Noah's soul with their consciousness, were unable to stay awake. They could only wake up when Noah called or under special circumstances. Now, under Noah's call, Draeger's consciousness, which was residing in Noah's soul, began to stir, and gradually began to wake up. "Waking me up without using the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. What a rare situation. Don't joke with me." Noah went straight to the point. "What's with the kitten's state?" "Kitten? Is that the child in your arms?" Draeger seemed to have noticed the kitten's cat ears and tail, and asked in surprise. "It's actually a Nikomata, that's really rare." "Nikomata?" Noah frowned. "Are you referring to the cat demon?" "That's right, it's a cat demon. Also known as a Nikomata in this country," Draeger said. "Moreover, this Nikomata's body also has the aura of an immortal technique. She's probably the strongest of the Nikomata race, a superior monster that can use both demonic and immortal techniques. The descendants of the Nikomata race are simply the rarest of the rare races." Hearing Draeger's words, Noah immediately understood. The kitten was probably not a human that reincarnated into a demon, but a monster that reincarnated into a demon. That pure energy should be the immortal technique that Draeger mentioned. In other words, the kitten had been hiding her identity. Could this be the kitten's unbearable past? But why did the kitten lose her mind? "This might be caused by you." Draeger voiced his guess. The Nikomata are superior monsters that can use immortal techniques, and are very sensitive to nature and the aura of the human body. Recently, you've been exploring the use of a higher level of power, and the aura in your body has increased too much. Moreover, this Nikomata has been hanging around you all day, and deliberately suppressing her power. After being stimulated by you, the hidden power was finally activated, causing this Nikomata to lose her mind, right? In other words, this was indeed caused by Noah. But why would the kitten deliberately hide such power? Looks like it's time to talk to Leah.